up. I hope everyone is having a happy Friday. I can't believe it's Friday already. This week flew by fast for me, so be sure to say hello when you get in. I'm going to be pulling everything up, so just give me a couple minutes to do that. Let's see. We're going to share this. Hello. Well, everyone, let me know in the chat where you're from when you hop in and say hello. It's been a while since I've done a live. We are going to be covering the Karmelo Anthony case. The trial is going on right now, Oklahoma. Nice. I haven't been to Oklahoma. How are the storms? Are you guys having bad weather? Let's see. Washington State. Hello. Alabama. Nice. I hope everyone's having a good Friday. Hopefully the weather is good. Oh, Sam, you're from Texas. I didn't know that. That's awesome. Yeah, this case is really one that I think is causing a lot of controversy and back and forth just because the kids are young. It's so sad. It's so sad because you two 17-year-old boys, you know what I mean? Your whole life ahead of you, both scheduled to graduate. You know, you could do anything in your life, and then a split-second decision changes everything. So we're going to be going over all that. I'm just giving people a couple minutes to get in. So I have pulled up on the screen for those of you that aren't familiar with the case. You have Karmelo Anthony on the left, and then Austin Metcalf is on the right. That's the victim in the case, in the trial that is taking place right now. Both were 17 years old, went to two different high schools. They were at a national championship track meet. So there was, I believe, somewhere around 10 schools at this track meet. Several tents on one side of, I'm guessing it's the football field, because the football field usually has the track around it at most high schools. And what ended up happening was, we'll go into it in detail, but they had an altercation that was verbal. Obviously, we all know it turned to not verbal because we have a deceased 17-year-old. So such a sad case. Again, I think this case has a lot of people divided. I think it's caused, like I always tell you guys, that right now I think the environment in the country is very hot because of all kinds of different things going on. I think people are financially stressed. Things are expensive, you know, and so you add these kinds of things to the mix where things can be, you know, really, I don't want to say racially charged, but you know what I mean? That's kind of what's going on right now. You know, you have people, you know, that's an element of this case that's been brought up. And so they have barricades around this courthouse because, you know, they're saying that they're afraid that when the verdict comes out, that this is going to erupt. I don't know if you guys followed the Karen Reed case, but in Karen Reed, they had the barricades outside of the courthouse as well. There were people that lined the streets for Karen Reed. And so people were very afraid of what would erupt outside because it was so emotionally charged. Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to read the comments really quick before we jump in. I appreciate you guys hopping into the live today. It's actually perfect right now. Just kind of hot, but tomorrow we're going to have absolute supercell with thunderstorm. Oh no. Rainy Houston, Texas. Yeah, Florida is kind of back and forth right now. So like we're having like rain, and then it's been really hot, but we've had some rain. We went without rain for so long, and then like the last like couple days we've had a lot of rain. So okay, we're just going to get into it, and then when people pop in, they pop in because it is the middle of the day. So I don't know how many people are going to end up being in here, but So again, this is a case that has the local community completely divided. Tensions are rising. Like I said, they have barricades outside of the courthouse, and it seems they are prepared for what could be a huge uproar from this highly intense and emotional case. This reminds me very much, again, like I was saying a few minutes ago, of the Karen Reed trial with how far out they had the barricades in preparation for what could happen after a verdict was read. Um, Jury pool selection had started on June 1st, and they started with about like 500 jurors. They dwindled it down to 250, and then obviously you have your final 12, and you hope that you get an impartial jury. That's always the important part. Obviously, this could be really a difficult task in cases like this that get this national attention, let alone local attention, because obviously, how do you get an impartial jury when everybody's heard about the case? And, this happened a year ago. So you have a year of, a storyline that you've heard on the internet. Now, I will say this, that the judge in this case has been very tight lipped. The gag orders were very strict. And so surprisingly, nothing has really come out except for just that basic storyline in the last year. So a lot of people are hearing the details now. People who are sitting in the courtroom, us through, because cameras are not allowed in the courtroom with this case. He banned cameras. His reasoning was he wanted to keep the courthouse orderly. And again, I think it just comes back to this like emotionally charged situation with other things on top of it. The trial, they say, is probably going to take a couple of weeks. That's what they're expecting. I'm curious to see how divided people really are. So that's why I did that post yesterday and went over the initial case, because I wanted to kind of see like where people are at. Unfortunately, the video didn't get pushed out far enough to gauge like truly like what people are thinking. I would say most people on this channel think that it was murder. So as we talked about in my previous video, both of these boys are 14 years old. They did not know each other. They did not go to the same school. They did not run in any same social circles. They did not have mutual friends. They were at this championship track meet. And like I said, there were 10 schools in attendance, I believe it was. And what ended up happening was, typically, obviously it's Texas, it's usually a sunny day. On this particular day, they had rain delays. So there was a lot of hanging out under the tents, whatever. The story is that Karmelo went under Austin Metcalf's school's tent. No one knows why he went under the tent. There was a lot of speculation about maybe, he knew someone. Was he just like being nosy and nosing around? Was he talking to a girl? No one really knew what he was doing under that tent. It was never, ever talked about. There was just a lot of speculation of like what the possibilities could be. And so after that, allegedly, obviously, Austin Metcalf went under the tent because he had seen that Karmelo was in there. Obviously, there's still a lack of understanding of how this was said, the exact verbiage that was used, because you're getting witness testimony from people who were there who are saying what they heard, right? And so there's different versions, I believe, of how this could have been said. We don't know exactly how it was said. That's something that we're going to hear throughout trial, obviously, as we have witness testimony. So that verbal altercation obviously took place. Witnesses were saying that Karmelo had reached into his backpack or a bag and said, "Touch me and see what happens." Austin, being a 17-year-old kid, and you guys let me know in the comments what you guys think, because when I was 17, if I would have said that to someone, my first thought wouldn't be that this person is going to pull out a knife and stab me, especially back then. I mean, I graduated high school in 2007. So, back then people, especially, I didn't go to a great high school. But I just would have never, that's not something I think that is on a 17-year-old's brain. If you say, "Hey, get out of my tent," that would cause this like altercation, right? So I don't think that even crossed his mind. Obviously, football player. I think when you're a teenage boy, you got the hormones, you got the like, say it with your chest type attitude, some of them. Um, and so I assume, they're saying what they're saying is that, and what's believed is that he walked up to him and either shoved him or what we knew before trial was got in his face. There was something that went on there. Um, Again, we've seen teens do this all the time. People get in each other's faces all the time. Adults do it. It's, a verbal altercation that's what it is. Um, and so he felt that Austin was coming at him or shoved him or whatever transpired. And he pulled out a knife from his backpack and stabbed Austin Metcalf in the chest. Austin ends up bleeding out in his twin brother's arms on the bleachers, and Karmelo ran off. Okay. So when police later approached, Karmelo did admit that he had, Austin, and that it was self-defense. So that was how he left it was self-defense. He shoved me, and that's how it was left. So I had a lot of questions when I first heard about this case, probably the same questions you guys have been asking, which is, why was a knife in his backpack on school grounds? And why would you need a knife at a track meet or school period? Okay. Back in the day, again, we're talking about 07. I graduated. So before that, weapons, no matter what, were not allowed at school. Pocket knife, utility knife did not matter, cannot be in school grounds. That was the kind of stuff that got you expelled. Okay. Let alone guns and so on and so forth. So at a school event on school grounds, I would have to believe that if a weapon was found at all, let alone used, there had to be some intention in going there with it. That's just my opinion, again, because, again, typically those are not allowed on school grounds no matter what it is. Now, I know, and Sam, you're from Texas, you're in the chat. I know that Texas has supposedly certain laws about, I can't think if it's a knife specifically. But I know that there are specific laws that I think it is something to do with a knife or something, where I think you can have something like that. I don't know if I got this wrong. This is what, when I was kind of like researching and listening to different news stations, talking to different professionals and stuff, there were things that were mentioned. But again, why would you need that at a school event? It just doesn't make sense unless you're going there with the intention of using it. It's not any 17-year-old that thinks like, hey, I'm going to go to this track meet. I'm going to walk into a tent that's not mine, does not, I don't belong there. And then I'm going to end up in this like argument and then turn around and use this. So to me, it doesn't look good that it was even there. That's just my opinion. You guys can keep letting me know in the chat what you guys think as I kind of go through. So there are several factors at play here. Why was this knife there? Okay, if there's no intention to use it. Again, we're at a school event. Did the altercation that took place give Karmelo a reason to feel threatened? And not only just feel threatened, but to where he felt his life was in danger in order to use deadly force. That is going to be probably the biggest part of this case because the threat level matters. Pardon me. So as far as what's been put out there is that it was just the two boys having an argument that led to someone dying, and not one team, jumping one person. So not several people trying to jump one individual. That's not what transpired that day. So we know that now for sure. Again, what would cause you to yield a weapon with the verbal argument that, we're hearing took place? So we're going to have to see how this plays out in trial, what the witness testimony is. Again, there's video surveillance that is going to be shown. We get into muddy waters when you think about someone carrying a weapon and then knowingly starting trouble in order to use it. And that wouldn't be the first time. There's been situations like that. I'm curious to see if that's what it's going to kind of look like. If you guys are familiar with the Henry Nowak case that took place in the UK, I'm going to be covering that case as well. Um, someone just walking home, minding their own business, and, ends up being stabbed to death. And then in the long run, they find out that why he was allegedly stabbed. Well, the police stood there and watched him, out on the ground, that he was not instigating anybody. He was actually being targeted. Um, so there's a lot of things that are going on right now. After this happened, an airtight gag order was put on everyone in this case. Okay, so that we have limited information from April 2nd, 2025, when this took place. I know a lot of people are on edge, and I think it's been very obvious if you've watched Carmelo's family talk. His mother did speak. I can always pull that up. I don't know how many of you guys saw her speech about, the threats her family's getting and so on. She's like, listen, my son's behavior, that's what he did. That's not what my daughter did. That's not what my husband did. That's not what I did. Please don't threaten, because her other, her daughter is scared. Her husband is getting death threats to his job. They doxed him. They doxed where he works. So there's like a lot of things going on, and it's very unfortunate. So, it was just a lot when when I saw that press conference. I felt really bad for her. You can hear the cracking in her voice, the pain, and it's sad because, again, this is all preventable stuff, and she is not responsible for what her child does. If you're a good parent, that doesn't mean that your kid's not going to go out there and do something terrible. That's out of your control when they walk out the door. You just pray that they make the right choices. So I wonder if we're going to learn, did Karmelo have a violent temper? I know that he had no criminal history. Obviously 17 years old. He was a student. There's a lot of good things that were said about him in opening statements, which we're going to go over. But he has no criminal past. But that doesn't mean that you don't have, a certain temperament or demeanor about you. It doesn't mean that you're not hot-headed. So I'm curious to see if we're going to learn any of that. And I am sure that they are going to talk to people closest to him. There's going to be some kind of character witness to vouch for the type of person he is, what his character is, and so on. That's my guess. So I'm curious to learn on that end, if he has any of that going on, because we have no criminal history. I think in this case, we're going to learn a lot in trial, obviously, again, because that gag order was so strict. So let's look at the comments really quick and see what we have going on. Okay. Texas Penal Code Section 46, third degree felony, prohibited weapon on school grounds. Okay. So it doesn't matter. Okay. There was some talk about something along those lines. I'm in Texas. Let's see, from the Plinko, Frisco area with family in Frisco. Most believe this is murder. He should not have had a weapon on school grounds, which is a felony in itself. I agree. I think that this is going to be a very big uphill battle for the defense. I really do. I really, really, really do. And we're going to listen to some interviews that are going on outside of the courthouse right now. And one of the things that someone talked about was, when you see the body cam footage or what the jury is seeing, he's not, he's crying, but it was after someone said, if he dies, your life is changed forever. And then he starts like really crying. And because it's hitting him, I think now that, like, okay, I didn't just stab someone in the chest, and like, you can't stab somebody in the heart and then, you know what I mean? I don't know how you would assume that person's going to live through that. But the point is that is talked about. So we'll have to see. Again, I just think the self-defense thing. Oh, this is what I was going to say. One of the things said was, it's weird that in those moments when he's, this is afterwards, the police are, starting to talk to him. They're going to arrest him, whatever. And they say, this is the person who allegedly did it. And he said to the officer, well, it's not alleged, I did it. And there's no, like, if somebody really pushed you guys into feeling cornered where you truly felt like you were in danger, and you knew, okay, in that moment, you already know that this person is deceased, I would be crying and saying, like, I didn't mean to do that. I had no choice but to do that. I thought they were all going to jump me. You know what I mean? Like, there would be something about, like, along those lines, I believe. And that was a great point that one of these attorneys brought up in an interview, which is, you don't hear that. If this is self defense and this was truly an accident, that there was no, I don't want to say it's premeditation because they didn't know each other to our knowledge. So I don't think he went there with a plan that day, but you have this on you and this altercation happens. And in the verbiage that was used that we're going to get into, it just, to me, this is going to be a huge uphill battle for the defense, I think. That's just my opinion. Again, this all comes back to what was the perception of the threat level for Karmelo Anthony. Still, then again, they're talking about body size, that, one was bigger than the other. Even if someone's bigger than you, that doesn't mean anything. I've watched smaller girls, beat the crap out of girls 10 times their size. It just doesn't matter. Again, we're talking about deadly force. It changes everything. So, again, that's going to be something that we're going to get into. A lot of us wonder if Karmelo is going to take the stand himself because of the gag order. Obviously, again, no one knows what's going to go on. And both families have been seen at court. So both families are there. They're on opposite sides of the courtroom, I know. I'm guessing because it's a self-defense case, or that's what his defense is using, I would imagine that you would have to take the stand and actually state what scared you, what made you feel that way, go through the events that day. That's my guess. I don't know if that's going to happen. We'll have to see. But I believe that in a self-defense claim, I would imagine you would have to take the stand. I don't know. You guys let me know what you guys think. Do you guys think he's going to take the stand in this case? I wonder what his attorneys are deciding, because obviously if he's going to, that's going to have to be practiced and rehearsed to make sure you got your story locked down, So I'll wait for you guys to answer that in the comments. So let's see. Let's get into yesterday. So yesterday was opening statements for the case. Obviously, because this case has so much public scrutiny around it, the county courthouse does not want cameras in there. Again, the judge is like, I want an orderly trial. He wants no trouble. He's extremely strict. They don't want cameras in there. I could understand why. I don't know if that's going to help or not in this case. I kind of am curious to see how that's going to make people feel. I don't like when cameras aren't allowed. I can understand what he's saying, but I don't think that that's going to change people standing outside of the courthouse and the emotional charge that's going on. I don't think that's going to change it. So we're going to pull up updates from Fox News, which I have right here. And then I want to go over a little bit more with the court TV stuff. So let me see if I could scroll down, because they had a really good timeline of like what went on. But now it's looking kind of different now that I have it pulled up on the computer. So they were saying security was extremely tight inside the courtroom. And I know that it's tight outside of the courtroom. Like I said, you have those barricades. They said there's only one door at the courthouse funneling people in and out is what I heard yesterday. They have armed security guards and sheriff's deputies. They said 24 of them are assigned to this case. Only 27 members of the public got seats inside the courtroom. There are another 100 lined up outside the courtroom hoping to get a seat at some point. And this is yesterday. If one opens up, everyone entering the courthouse must go through another security checkpoint. Courtroom. Anyone who leaves the courtroom will not be allowed back inside until its next break. The judge said there would be 2 breaks and a lunch break as well. The prosecution and defense each get 15 seats to give out. Most were given to family members. Metcalf's parents are seated in the second row, and on the prosecution side. Members of Anthony's family are seated in the first row on the defense's side. Anthony is in a gray suit, and his legal team by his side. Prosecutors are at a neighboring table. It started at 9 a.m. yesterday. So it says the attorneys for both sides were given 20 minutes to present opening statements to the jury. Calhoun County District Attorney Bill began by talking about the evidence in this trial. He said it would show that Anthony provoked another young man he didn't know into touching him. Worski, I think is how you say his name, said Anthony used a hidden knife, opened his hand, plunged into Metcalf's chest, causing the death, and then ran away. He called it a provoked, unjustified murder. This case has nothing to do with race. This case is not self-defense. The DA said that when Metcalf finally pushed and shoved, Anthony carried out his sneak attack. And then they're saying that there's been a lot of noise around this case, said defense attorney Mike Howard. Sorry, guys, I have a cough today. A lot of completely false information. Howard told jurors that evidence would show Anthony as a son, a brother, a friend, boyfriend, athlete, and an A student. He has a 3.7 GPA. They were saying he works 2 jobs. So they did a good job of really trying to humanize him to get people to garner a little bit of sympathy, right? You're going to look at him as like, oh, okay, he's a good student. He's in sports. He's not just this like cold-blooded, killer. The defense attorney said there are different accounts of what was said in the moments leading up to the fatal incident. Howard claims there was no dispute. Anthony stayed seated the whole time as Metcalf came up to his right shoulder, and Metcalf's twin brother, Hunter, stood in front of him. According to the defense attorney, Anthony put his hand in his bag as Metcalf made the first contact. Anthony made the split-second decision to act as the group was turning on him. He reacts in a split second and later, or in fear of chaos, Anthony didn't threaten to hurt anyone else and tossed the knife near the tent. He did not try to hide it. He was defending himself. The defense said, Howard said, once all evidence is presented, jurors will be asked or have to ask themselves if the government has ruled out all reasonable doubt, including that Anthony acted in self-defense. They had a giant TV screen, which was rolled in front of the jury so they could see the grainy surveillance footage up close. They provided a total of 5 different camera angles. The first witness to take the stand was Mark Porter, a forensic video analyst, who handled the surveillance video from the track meet. Jurors will watch that video. So I'm going to take a break from reading this. So when it came to the video that they are going to watch, that video, the reason they have the forensic analyst is because they were trying to zoom in on this video to be able to see really what's transpiring there. It was still grainy footage. So what people were saying was that you could still see groups of people. You can still see, and it's like blobs of color. So they were going off of what they were wearing that day to kind of figure out who's who. And you do kind of see this like scuffle. Okay. So there, that was, the footage was not clear, but it was enough to know who's who, supposedly. So there was that. Obviously, again, a witness to this states that Karmelo reached in the bag, made the statement or something similar to touch me if you want to, or see what happens. And there was also like another statement, or see what happens when you touch me. It was like one of those. Again, the verbiage is back and forth, right? Austin. So then after that, he stabbed Austin in the chest. The defense says that he said, as long as you do not. So the defense is saying that he said, as long as you do not touch me, we will be cool. So the 2 different statements. So yeah, and they said in buying the fact that there was a verbal altercation, but everything was fine as long as no one touched him. They also stated that Karmelo was in the tent visiting with someone he was acquainted with. They're saying he saw a friend of his girlfriend, someone he's familiar with, and He went over there. This is what the video shows him getting into the tent that day where Karmelo was under the tent for only 2 minutes. And then that's when Austin and his twin brother, and I think there was a few other friends that walk into the tent. And then the whole thing goes down at around the 4-minute mark of both of them, obviously being under the tent. There's this, scuffle is what I'll call it. They did say, which I found this interesting, that there were people that were walking by the tent during this scuffle that you can see. And they did not look over. They weren't like stopping to see what was going on. So what they were kind of trying to, I think, hint at is there really wasn't this like super tense exchange, because if you have this tense exchange and you're yelling and you're screaming, and it's like this heated thing, people are going to stop and look typically and be like, what's going on over there? There wasn't that from these people that were walking along. I think it was the bleachers. So I found that to be a little bit interesting. Again, they had 5 different angles of video footage. So they went through all of those. Again, everything was still fuzzy is what they were saying. Let's see. They talked about how the video shows very clearly in the track, like of the track meet event itself, before it was starting. So you got to see Karmelo walk along the bleachers and walk towards that tent, and towards someone for a few minutes. Again, when you see Austin and his brother enter the tent from this other angle. So let's see. And again, once all that really starts to transpire, again, it's where you can't really make out exactly what's going on at the 5-6 minute mark. And then you see a quick to and from is what they were saying. And what that quick to and from is they claim it's the shoving going on. So that's when this like shove happened. People around them obviously were walking by, again, as I told you guys, in this angle, not paying attention to what's going on. They're not looking over. They're just walking by again. So is there really this like crazy, yelling, screaming, tense altercation to where you would feel that someone was going to possibly end your life to where you needed to defend yourself like that? After this whole stabbing takes place, Karmelo had ran off, and you see this in the video footage, had ran off along the bleachers, went over to one of his coaches, and eventually after that, they show the angle where the police are taking him into custody. Several news outlets reported that the opening statements were very emotional. I expected them to be. Both parties' families were present again, as I said, sitting on opposite sides of the courtroom. I would imagine they would not be sitting together. And what we're going to do now is we're going to leave this. We're going to leave the article because I want to go to the coverage from yesterday, and I want to listen to a portion of court TV. They did talk about the jury as well, so we're going to look at that as well. Again, I know that some people want to know about what the jury is consisted of, so we'll listen to that right here. As soon as let me make sure I have this shared on my screen for you guys. Sorry, I haven't done a live in a while, so I got to get back into the rhythm.
Case that has so many eyes on it is really helpful. You also broke some news for us earlier when it came to the jury. There have been a lot of questions about who's on this jury, what may be their demographics, how will that impact a case that has had a lot of polarization racially, especially online, even though we know these parties say, even the prosecution today in the opening saying this is not about race. But what have you observed about the racial makeup of this jury?
Yeah, Julia. So, of course, this with the optics of this case, this story here, young black kid, young white kid, violent crime. Of course, people are going to have their opinions. They're going to have their judgments. And, the jury was, that the makeup of the jury was in question. And so, of course, I was in jury selection yesterday, and that jury was seated around just after 5 p.m. yesterday. And I couldn't necessarily see the courtroom today. we saw reports last night that there was no African-American people on the jury, and that held to be true. It's a majority white jury, of course, made up of men and women. There are 3 Asian women on the jury. One looked what looked to be a Middle Eastern woman on the jury, and another person of darker complexion on the jury, but none of them were African-American. There's a total of 12 jurors, 6 alternates, so a total of 18, I guess I should say. But yeah, majority white jury. All the men are white as well, so the reports were true. No African-American people on this jury. I remember yesterday during jury selection, the defense raised an objection to the prosecution's strikes. In the strike zone, there were 3 black female jurors that the prosecution wanted to strike, and that would have been all the African-American jurors that were available at the time. And the prosecution says they did not strike them on a racial basis, but on an occupational basis, because they were all educators, and they thought that would hold some sort of bias because all of this went down at a school. But the defense's objection was eventually denied by the judge, and the judge, granted the strikes on behalf of the prosecution. So those are the only 3 available African-American jurors at the time, right before the jury got seated. That objection got denied about 15 minutes before it was seated yesterday. So majority white jury, 3 Asian women, and 2 women of color, but no African-Americans at all.
Wow.
Okay, so that's the portion about the jury, just so we have that information. See, Anthony didn't do anything wrong. Defend yourself. Hi, Jay. How are you? I really wish there were cameras inside. I do too. I wish there was too. I don't know if that's going to change how upset people are, how dividing this is. I think it's still going to be pretty divisive. That's just my opinion. So we're going to fast forward to this portion because this was interesting.
No one really thought Karmelo really had any weapons. Suspect Karmelo Anthony trial are going to be the surveillance footage from the stadium and witness statements. That surveillance video has already come out inside of the courtroom. But we're taking a look at what those statements were in the police report from the people who witnessed the incident. So a school resource officer was taking down these statements in the police report. Let's take a look at witness statement number 1. And this is a minor, a witness that was sitting under the Memorial High pop-up tent with his team near the victim, Austin Metcalf. The suspect, Karmelo Anthony, was from Centennial High and was sitting under the Memorial High tent. Austin told Karmelo that he needed to move out from under their team's tent. Karmelo grabbed his bag, opened it, reached inside, and proceeded to tell Austin, quote, "Touch me and see what happens." No one really thought Karmelo really had any weapons in his bag, and Austin proceeded to touch Karmelo. Then Karmelo told Austin to punch him and see what happens. A short time later, Austin grabbed Karmelo to tell him to move, and Karmelo pulled out what this witness recalled as a black knife and stabbed Austin once in the chest and then ran away. Let's talk about what that statement means for this case.
So in Texas, you cannot show up to a confrontation with a weapon. That's what this kind of sounds like. You're in a tent again. You're in a tent that you know you don't belong in. This is another school's tent. Why you would go into "don't touch me" will be cool. I don't even know why you would get into that. If someone was like, "Hey, get out of our tent," I would have just left their tent. But I also wouldn't be in a tent that wasn't my school's tent. That's, to me, that alone is, it's not a mistake. It's not like you mistaked, where your tent was. It wasn't that. Again, we're going to hear exactly why he was in the tent, allegedly. But yeah, that's a Texas law. So let's go. Again, I think it just comes off as instigating an argument, basically, and looking for a reason to use it. That's just me. That's how it seems. Again, we have to go through trial. There's a lot of information that's not out there yet. So we have to see what all comes out. We're going to fast forward to right here. I believe it's 31. Yep. And we'll listen to this portion.
Or touch me and don't touch me and we'll be cool. Mark, I want to show you witness statement number 2 in this police report. This witness stated to police that they were all sitting on the bleachers under a Memorial High tent when another male he did not know walked over and sat under the tent. That would be Karmelo Anthony. Austin told this male that since he didn't go to Memorial, he had to leave the tent. Austin and the male went back and forth. Then Austin stood up and pushed the male to get him out of the tent. During the time of the arguing, the male was reaching around in the bag that he had. It was at this time that the male took out the knife and stabbed Austin and then left the scene. They're substantially the same, Mark, in terms of what they are saying. There are a few differences, but what's your take on whether or not, from those witness statements at the time that this happened, where do you think the jury would land on a case like this?
You know, it's fun. It's going to be a tough call. And I know that's an easy thing to say. You can't lose if you say you're in the middle. It's going to be a tough call for these reasons. When you actually do an analysis of self-defense, there are different components. You know, the argument that Karmelo Anthony was there and he shouldn't have been there. Well, that's okay, but it's not your bleachers. You don't get to throw people out because of a tent. That's an argument that you're going to see the defense make. Why did the eventual victim in this case decide that it was his role to kick him out? And then there's a tussling back and forth. And then, unfortunately, Mr. Metcalf did seemingly start the fight, so to speak, right? He was what we might call the aggressor, and pushing him out or grabbing him and touching him. So under Florida law and also Texas law, and when you're the aggressor, when you first start the fight, so to speak, you may lose the protection. If it was Karmelo who started it, Karmelo Anthony. Now we get to say shifted because if Metcalf was the one who started the fight, now can Anthony respond to defend himself? We know he can. And then, as was mentioned a moment ago, you know, are you supposed to bring a knife to a fist fight? No. You're supposed to bring a gun to a fist fight? Absolutely not. But if you're there and starting to get attacked, which is what the defense is going to say, can you defend yourself? And what they're going to say is, Anthony doesn't need to wait until the first nasty strike, the first injury. He can presuppose what might happen, and he's allowed to defend himself. But again, a tough case, because it really is in the middle, and we're talking about two 17-year-olds, and not making fun of it, but neither of which were acting with real good reason. We joke and say that a male brain isn't fully developed until 25, and unfortunately, the tragedy happened probably because of a mix of testosterone and immaturity that brought these two boys together.
Yeah, Nicole, we talk a lot about whether race has a factor here, but I think age has a really big factor here. And not only the age of the defendant, the age of the stabbing victim, but also the ages of these witnesses who are going to be having to take the stand. This has been a traumatic experience for them, seeing their friend stabbed in front of them. Do you anticipate that they'll be able to shed more light on what happened, or even if at the height of this, they'll be able to say whether there was this initial aggression that Mark is talking about? But at what level would it actually be warranted for self-defense, do you think? I mean,
I want to skip forward to this part because
welcome back to TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for following along with us as we track day one of the track meet stabbing trial for Karmelo Anthony. It's happening right now.
So this is going to be the part one of, or part of the opening statement that we're going to listen to here.
On lunch break, and our Cody Thomas is there on the ground. He'll be giving us updates throughout the day, so at any moment he could come out and give us a new update on what's happening there. But we do want to show you what happened this morning during the opening statements. Both sides only got 20 minutes to deliver this to the jury of 12 plus 6 alternates. Here's a portion of the prosecution's opening statement. They told this jury, we are all here because Karmelo Anthony decided to take a knife to a high school track meet and provoke another young man who he didn't know into touching him, holding an already open knife in his hand and plunging it into his heart. They went on to say that this man decided to commit an unjustified provoked murder and that this case has nothing to do with race. This is not self-defense. Let's talk about the prosecution's beginning of their case in front of this jury. With us, we have our guest, former prosecutor Nicole DeBoard, criminal defense attorney Joanna Nieves, and criminal defense attorney Mario Gallucci. It's so good to have you all on. Mario, let me get your thoughts on this first. I've been hearing you talk about it all day with Ted, but when you hear this fact that the prosecution says they have, that the knife was open inside of the bag, how compelling is that to this case?
So, I mean, the prosecution's trying to make it seem like he went there with an open knife in his bag to cause a problem. I don't see it that way. It's a pocket knife. We're not talking about a machete. We're not talking about a dagger. We're not talking about a switchblade. We're talking about, an ordinary pocket knife that's used on a daily basis to do whatever utility you need to be done. So just by, and I believe you're going to hear this from the defense, just by the virtue of there being an open pocket knife in a bag doesn't mean that he went there with the intent to harm someone. And I think that that's what's going to come out on the defense side once we get this trial up and running.
And Joanna, what do you think about the theory that the prosecution has that Karmelo Anthony's position all along was to get someone to do something so that he could kill them? Do you think that's effective? And is Karmelo Anthony going to have to take the stand to combat that?
Hi, Julia. I definitely think there's a damage that happens when you kind of over exaggerate and emphasize things that aren't necessarily going to be consistent with what the defense is going to put forward. Karmelo Anthony was a good student. He worked. He came from a good family. He's got a support system. He participated in athletics. And you want the jury to believe that he really came to school with the intention of, or a track meet with the intention of murdering somebody. I think that's a far stretch of the imagination. And the prosecution is almost like just over promising and likely going to underdeliver in that regard.
We'll talk about the overpromising and undelivered, especially when it comes to that surveillance video that was shown. But Nicole, I want to get your last thoughts on what we just showed in terms of the opening statements. The prosecution wanting to make sure that they say in that little bit of 20 minutes that they got in front of this jury that this case has nothing to do with race and this is not self-defense. Did they need to state that? Are they trying to get out ahead of something? Are they just saying that to the public that is watching and perhaps just feeling very polarized about this case?
You know, that's a great question because, you know, it's kind of like telling a bunch of people who are going to decide the facts don't think of pink elephants. I mean, that's what they're going to think immediately to me. So I'm not sure it was necessary to say that. It is, however, true that the case is going to be all about self-defense or not self-defense. And so I don't know that they revealed any sort of concern for weakness by saying that. And the reality is it's going to boil down to how jurors on this case think about whether or not it's a problem for a student, for anyone, to bring a knife of any kind to a track meet. And I think that that is going to be the defense's biggest hurdle. And, you know, we don't have premeditation in Texas. That's all we have is intent in the moment. And so the prosecution doesn't really have to show any kind of forethought in terms of how long this planning would have gone on. They get to show whether or not the conduct was intentional in the very moment that it happened. And that's it. So I think that the defense has got a big climb here.
A really important distinction there when it comes to murder in the state of Texas. I do want to show a few more details that came out during that prosecution opening statement. This includes that Austin Metcalf, the stabbing victim, and team were under their school tent at that track meet, that Karmelo Anthony went under Metcalf's team tent during bad weather. Metcalf asked Anthony to leave the tent, prompting a fight where Anthony stabbed Metcalf. Mario, I'm going to focus on one part of that actually has come up a lot online.
Okay, we're going to stop it there, and we're just going to go to this other portion of the opening statement from the defense. I don't want to overdo it because some of you, I'm sure, have watched some of this elsewhere, but I just wanted to kind of cover some of
If
this.
you need to lose that cortisol.
So, and I'm trying to show both sides giving their opinion as well.
Thank you.
Our notes inside of that courtroom, because we don't have cameras, but we have Cody Thomas. He's there right now and will be giving us notes throughout the day. This is defense attorney Mike Howard saying self-defense is useless if you wait until it is too late to use it. In that moment, when Austin makes the first physical contact, he reacts in a split, he meaning Karmelo Anthony reacts in a split second of fear and chaos. Well, why didn't he just walk away? There's an answer. After Karmelo defended himself, he ran. He didn't stab twice. He dropped the knife right by the tent on the bleachers. Instead of running to the exit, he goes onto the track and walks right up to a coach and stayed with this coach until that officer arrived. Let's bring back in our panel, see what they think about the defense side of things. Still with us, trial attorney Mario Gallucci, former prosecutor Nicole DeBoard, and criminal defense attorney Joanna Nieves. Nicole, I'm going to start with you on this one because now we're getting more details, at least from the defense perspective, about what Karmelo Anthony did immediately after the stabbing. How important is that?
I think it's very important. And I think that the prosecution is going to harp on the idea that, well, if you're fleeing, then that we can use that as evidence that you have a consciousness of guilt. What the defense is going to say is exactly what you heard in the opening arguments. He wasn't fleeing at all. He was running to safety. He was running to the safety of an adult. And so he didn't leave the scene. He ran to someone who he trusted to stand with them for protection until law enforcement could arrive. So these are the two different perspectives that I think we're going to continue to hear about, and the different perspectives support the different theories on each side.
Yeah, Joanna, we have the defense starting out their opening statement, really trying to humanize their client, let them know all of his background, and even that diagnosis with epilepsy I found was interesting to bring out in openings. What did you think? What stood out to you?
All of those things, because that's really part of taking away the bluster that was happening with the prosecution's case about, this was his plan all along. He wanted to provoke something and instigate something. And when you start highlighting that this is actually what his background is, he doesn't come across like somebody who's going there with some murderous intent and even formulating that in the moment. His words, his actions all speak to him protecting himself and seeking out safety. And keep in mind, he's 17 years old. I know he's being tried as an adult, but he is a child still who has impulsive, not fully formed and completely immature brain waves that need to be taken into consideration. So, yes, he ran away, and my colleague was saying, he was looking for a place of safety, and I think all of that is relevant, especially his age.
Yeah, 17 at the time, 19 years old inside of that courtroom, now out on bond, so he's able to go in and out of the courtroom each day. Amaro, your thoughts on the fleeing or the running to get help, however it's being characterized differently by either side. I do want to also point out what the police report said about what he said, what Karmelo said as soon as he interacted with the school resource officer. He told them that Austin put his hands on me. He advised other officers that the officer said, I have the suspect or alleged suspect in custody. And Karmelo Anthony said, I'm not alleged, I did it. And he also asked, is the victim going to be okay? What do you think is going to be the impact of his own words as to whether or not he was fleeing or he was someone who was just getting out of the way of the chaos in order to then turn himself in?
So I agree with Nicole completely on this issue. I mean, we see consciousness of guilt in all of these cases, and we just discussed this in the last hour with Ted. But in consciousness of guilt, he did not flee. He went to a person in authority. He went to a coach. He dropped the knife. He didn't leave the scene. He asked how the victim was. He said he did it. He said why he did it. I think he did a very good job, and the defense did a great job, like Joanna just said, in humanizing him. We now know he's a straight-A student. We now know he has no contact whatsoever previously with the criminal justice system. We know he's an athlete. So you're coming into this with a 17-year-old boy who found himself in this predicament, and after it, he could have fled. He could have gotten scared. There was an exit nearby. He chose not to take it. Instead, he went to a person of authority. So this Mr. Anthony made all of the right moves after the incident.
The size of these two individuals, Nicole, also came out in the defense case, or not in their case, but their opening statements. And I want to see if I can pull it up quickly. The defense said that Karmelo Anthony is 5'8", 135 pounds, and that the twins, including the stabbing victim, Austin Metcalf, and his twin brother was there. They are 6'1" and 215 pounds. I keep asking if these details are going to carry any weight. So my question is the same. Is that going to impact the jury? Do they care about the size when one person has a knife?
Right. I mean, I think that's exactly what the defense should be doing, is highlighting why, from the perspective of Karmelo, would this be reasonable to perceive that you were an imminent threat of serious bodily harm or even death. So not only do you have one potential attacker, but you have two, right? They're both approaching him together. One of them, even though they appear to be acting in unison, puts hands on him or threatens to put hands on him, depending on what you believe. And then he reacts as he does. Now, there's no question that this is an absolute tragedy, probably not the most mature decision. And we have real questions from the prosecution's perspective about whether or not you can instigate this kind of contact when you know you have an available weapon on you from Texas legal analysis standpoint. But the size, to answer your question, is absolutely going to be something these jurors are going to need to consider when they look at Karmelo's perspective, which they must do.
Absolutely. Let's take.
Okay, so we'll stop it there to talk for a few minutes. What do you guys think so far? What do you guys think of what we've just gone over and listened to? I'm kind of curious to see where all you guys are at. Let me know in the chat. But I definitely think that they tried to humanize him with the opening statement. I definitely think, you know, I clearly he did run off to the coach. I think he knew at that point he was in trouble. He had to know it wasn't good, you know. Um, you feel like the panel's bias. Yeah, it's hard with news stations. I feel like it's hard to get a good mix. But we're gonna leave yesterday because that's basically for the most part, I mean, what went on yesterday. Today, there's much more going on. So I want to skip to today, so we can go over today. And I've kind of listened into today just so I can give you guys like a little bit of an idea of like what's going on. So today, there was some body cam footage that was shown to the jury. There was a showing of the knife and actually a showing of how fast it flips open, and is readily able to use. We heard from first responders, their experience when they got on scene, things like that. So it's definitely busier today than it was yesterday. So we're going to go ahead and pull that up so we can listen to the updates from that are coming out now. Again, if you guys can, just be sure to like the live. I appreciate all of you guys being here with me today. I know that there's 1,000 creators you guys can watch, and I just appreciate all the support that you guys give the channel. Any super chats will be right at the end. I always try to remind people of that, so I'm not ignoring you. They'll be right at the end. And real quick, before we jump into this, if you are interested in supporting the channel and you like the channel, there is merch on the channel website. And also, we offer 4 different memberships. We just offered the top membership, which is going to have 2 members only lives a month, which I'm really excited about to cater to the members. Because there's some really fun things that are going to go on in the future for that. So just to put that out there, of course, you guys don't have to. I just always like to remind people. I'm really excited about the members only lives. Those are going to be really, really fun. So let's jump into this.
First responder and 2 officers. The first responder was a firefighter and paramedic that pretty much testified to the severity of the wounds once he arrived to Austin Metcalf's body, and just talked about the intense life-saving efforts they went through trying to revive him, to which, of course, to no avail. But they talked about, attaching a machine to his chest to read a pulse, and he had no pulse. They said it was flatline. There was an acronym he used, a medical term, and the prosecutor asked for, simplicity for the lay people in the gallery, and he just said, yeah, he had no pulse. He was pretty much dead in a cardiac sense. They loaded him up into the back of the ambulance, to which, he eventually did not regain consciousness. But then we went on to see more from officers, and they were testifying about their response to the situation that day. One was a school resource officer. He was actually the one that made contact with Karmelo Anthony and the one who detained him. But he talked about the commotion when he ran out there to the scene, all the kids running to him saying, someone's been stabbed, and they pointed towards Karmelo's direction. And so you see on the body cam when he finally approaches Karmelo, and Karmelo seemed to cooperate. He was being very cooperative. He was being compliant. He didn't try to run away. But the key thing about this testimony here on the body cam, you hear Karmelo say to the officer, he put his hands on me. I told him not to. And when he says that phrase, he clearly he's crying hysterically. You can hear him sobbing in a very emotional state. But the prosecution's harping on that last half of that statement, the I told him not to part, because the prosecution says that's simply a lie. We've heard that phrasing, he told him not to put his hands on me, or put your hands on me and see what happens. That's the narrative that the prosecution's running with, and that eventually led Karmelo to stab Austin Metcalf. But there was another officer whose body cam was played during this officer's testimony, where you heard the officer say, we have the alleged suspect, and then you clearly hear Karmelo say out loud, I'm not alleged, I did it. So kind of damaging to the defense's case here. But then we just heard from an officer who arrived who did not partake in any life-saving efforts for Austin Metcalf's body, more of scene patrol, scene security is what he was saying, and evidence control. He was the one securing off the scene there, and he actually showed, or we saw pictures of the knife. It was a 5-inch blade. The first time the jury actually saw that knife in person, they did a demonstrative effort in front of this jury where they showed that the blade could be swung out really quick with just the stroke of a thumb. You could open it really quickly with one hand. But the impactful part of that testimony is that we saw the body cam from this officer where you actually see Austin Metcalf's pretty much lifeless body, everyone trying to give him chest compressions, but you see the body on screen, and that obviously brought out a visceral, emotional reaction from the Metcalf family. Plenty of tears and sobbing and consoling. And I looked towards Karmelo Anthony's side, and it was pretty stoic. There was a pretty, a lack of emotion there, not necessarily in a negative sense, but just really take evidence here, all the facts of this case.
Keyboards are obsolete. I'll prove it to you in on.
All right, we'll let this run. We're going to pause it for a second, actually, because I do want to talk for a minute. So they're talking about the blade of the knife. They're talking about how easily it opened. They're talking about, obviously, when first responders arrived on scene, that there was nothing to be done for him, which is sad. You think about, he has a twin brother. He died in his twin brother's arms. I can't imagine that kind of traumatic experience in itself. Again, I want to stress this, and I stressed this in my last video, is that nobody wins here. There are two victims here. You have a person who threw their life away making this decision, okay? And then you have a person who's never coming back. Neither family is winning in this situation. It's unfortunate because they're both 17-year-old adults that had their whole life ahead of them. They both seemed very accomplished, like they had a lot of achievements, goals, and a very promised future. That this is not where either one of them should have ended up. So as a whole, this is sad. And I know a lot of people, I'm getting a lot of hate for covering this. I am just saying that at the end of the day, nobody wins. And really, it shouldn't be where people are unsubscribing from people for covering a case of just what's going on in the world. Someone doesn't think the way you do, or maybe they're not, necessarily taking a side, or they're discussing issues that are going on, and you're so mad that you're like, hey, you know what I mean? We're at a point where it's like, I feel like, and I hate even saying this because I don't want to feel this way, but I tell my husband every day, I'm like, grown adults act like children nowadays. I feel like I'm dealing with a lot of immature adults. It's really crazy. Let's see. Okay, that's totally unnecessary unless he keeps it for intimidation value. But then again, why and how he used it is the main issue. Sadly, critical thinking left the building years ago. Yes, I was joking around about like doing a podcast just about critical thinking and common sense, because I think common sense left the building a long time ago too.
Actually see Austin Metcalf's pretty much lifeless body, everyone trying to give him chest compressions, but you see the body on screen, and that obviously brought out a visceral, emotional reaction from the Metcalf family. Plenty of tears and sobbing and consoling. And I looked towards Karmelo Anthony's side, and it was pretty stoic. There was a pretty, a lack of emotion there, not necessarily in a negative sense, but just really take evidence here, all the facts of this case as the prosecution presents it thus far. That's the latest right now. I'll send it back to you.
Thanks to Cody Thomas for that report there in McKinney, Texas. Let's bring in our guests who are standing by to talk about this evidence, this new evidence that the jury has seen inside of that courtroom. We have with us trial attorneys Lateef Gray and Al Wunsch III. Thank you both for being here to talk about this case that has so many people talking online. They are paying attention to the details, even though we don't have cameras inside, but the details that are coming out, everyone has an opinion on them. And I'm glad I can get your legal expertise on these. Al, let me start with you. The jury seeing the knife for the first time today. How important is the weapon, the size of the weapon? Does it matter? Especially.
That is a good point about, why people can't own their own mistakes. And it goes back to the Mackenzie Shirilla case that I've covered, or I've been covering, that came from the Crash documentary. My dad and mom always said, like, people make mistakes, right? When you make mistakes, they have consequences. And unfortunately, when you make those mistakes, no matter how bad they are or not, and you didn't mean to do it, you have to deal with the consequence of it. Whether it's an accident or not, it does not change the fact that Mackenzie Shirola crashed that car into a wall doing 98 miles an hour and it killed 2 people. Whether it was involuntary or not, it happened. There are 2 people gone. There are times in life where we make split-second decisions, and it does not take away from the fact that something happened and you have to own the consequence. It just is what it is. I have gel pepper spray, just so everyone knows. I also conceal and carry, but I do have gel pepper spray, and that would be like my first line of defense. Just for the reason of whether, you have a conceal and carry permit or not, and you know the law, I would rather use really a taser or my gel pepper spray first, just for the fact of then you get into the legality of using your weapon, and I'm not going to jail for trying to save myself. So I use less lethal ways first and then, go from there. But if I can use my gel pepper spray, that's better. We've seen cases where people have broken into people's homes and they get, they shoot the person and then they end up in jail because you shot them in the back and they were trying to leave. I don't even want to be put in a position, myself, where even though I was following the rules or I did something a certain way, that I have to worry about and jeopardize myself in that way. So, it's tricky. It's not cut and dry. And so that's why those, the gel pepper spray is a good first line of defense, a taser, enough for me to be able to get away or to stop somebody while I, get away or lock myself in a room or whatever it is.
Especially when this is a knife that obviously was able to kill someone.
No, I mean, it's always a key part of any prosecution case to have the weapon. So when you have the weapon there and you can show that, and it dispels any, false rumors that it was a stake or something that was used for the sporting event that was going on. This is a knife. This is a knife that is a dangerous knife. And this is a knife that should not have been at a sporting event for a high school team. Perfect.
Lieutenant Gray, weigh in as well about that knife. What did you think about hearing that it's a 5-inch blade, that it was folded out at the point that the officers were able to preserve it? Talk about that part of it and whether or not that makes a difference when it comes to this case being self-defense or murder.
Well, I think it does make a difference in the fact that you have a 5-inch switchblade. This is not what we would consider a utility knife, which a lot of people keep with them, that has a little blade, a bottle opener, things like that. So the big question is, what was this young man doing at this track event with this type of knife that it seems like he brought it maybe for his particular purpose? So that's the big question as to what he was doing with this type of knife, which is not what we usually see people walk around with on a daily basis.
Yeah, we keep hearing that question. Why did he have the knife? Now, there was something that came out today, Al, where on cross-examination, one of the witnesses did confirm that having the knife is not a crime, but they don't mean at the school, obviously, because there is a specific rule for that school ground. Can you help people understand the difference and whether or not those school regulations matter in a court of law, in a murder trial?
Well, I mean, it is something that no weapons are supposed to be brought into the schools. Schools have a zero tolerance of any type of, they have a zero tolerance for having a pretend gun. You can't even bring a water pistol in some instances if it looks like a real weapon. So that is a zero tolerance policy. Okay, having the possession of the knife is not a criminal offense in and of itself. That's correct.
Client pitch in Texas? Yeehaw. Conference in Vegas? I'm on it. Booking everyone's travel used to stress me out.
Okay, but it's a school event. He's a student. He's there. He's got a knife, 5-inch switchblade, which, I mean, we all agree is not the type of thing you would need under any circumstances at a sporting event. And he used the knife. So, whether or not it's legal to have it, it doesn't matter. Okay, it shouldn't have been there, and it shouldn't have been used, and it shouldn't have
taken the life of that, poor 17-year-old kid.
Oh, yeah. This question of whether or not you're allowed to have it and whether or not that matters in a criminal trial reminds me of a case that I was inside of the courtroom for in Florida against Curtis Reeves, who was a retired police officer at a movie theater. There were signs on the movie theater doors that said, "This is a no weapon zone." He had his weapon. He fired it in self-defense. A jury did acquit him of murder and killed another man who only had popcorn in his hand. But it did come up inside of the courtroom as to whether or not he saw the signs, whether he knew he should have it, or as a retired officer, is he allowed to carry the gun all the time? Lateef, is that, in your opinion, going to be weighing on the minds of the jury about where should this knife have been? Where was it permitted to have been? Or again, does it matter at all because this knife was used in a way that killed someone?
Well, I will say
I'm
this.
sure that's
okay.
something that
All right, let me let Lateef weigh in, Al, and then I'll let you react to it.
All right.
I'm sure that's something that the jury will consider, but I think we all know law trumps policy. So if it's not against the law, like I said, it's something that the jury will consider, but I don't think that will carry the day for either side at the end of the day.
Al, what do you think? Law trumps policy?
Yeah, law does trump policy, except that, and let's keep this in mind. This is in Florida. Okay, that was the most ridiculous verdict I've ever heard in my life that happened with regards to a guy who throws a couple of, assault and buttery, I called it, and he ends up losing his life in a movie theater. All right, this is Texas. I am confident that they're going to be a lot smarter jury, and they're going to be looking at it facts-wise as to what was going on, as opposed to some ridiculous verdict out of Florida.
Let's look at what the school resource officer on the stand today. This was, of course, a big moment. This is someone who would have arrived right after. And here are some of Cody Thomas's notes from inside watching that testimony.
So, yeah, I never heard about a 9-inch knife. So, actually, I didn't even hear anything about the size of the knife. That was not circulating from what I could see. Again, there was very strict gag orders. I knew it was, I think, a switchblade, but I did not know how big the knife was. I do agree with you guys, and this comes back to something my husband and I were talking about. Was in like high school, fist fights were like a thing. Like if you didn't get along with someone, and I was born and raised on the South Side of Chicago. Like people fist fought all the time. I'm not saying that it's right, but we solved our problems with fists. If you had an issue, it was like, I'll see you outside. You know what I mean? You get it out and over with, and you move on. We didn't, have knives and guns and whatever else. Like we just didn't do that. You know what I mean? That's how you dealt with it. So I don't really understand the pepper spray thing. If people are going to carry, the gel pepper spray is better. Personally, I just think I like the gel better. You could get it on Amazon, and they have ones now like mine has, where you can break the window in the car and cut a seatbelt on it as well, which is really nice. But the gel is really nice because then you don't have that blowback if you're worried about the blowback. Peaky Blinders, thank you so much for he gifted 5 memberships. That was really sweet of you. Thank you. I appreciate that. Yeah, everything as far as the memberships and the merch and all these things, they're going to go towards being able to bring you guys better content, paying for apps to be able to vet information, because as somebody who's always trying to do research and bring you guys truth and talk about conspiracy theories and get to the bottom of truth, you have to have several different apps to be able to do your due diligence when verifying things. There's tons of apps that go into even being able to create content. So every little bit helps. This is a small channel that has a lot of growing to do. This is my full-time gig, being with my lupus and fibromyalgia. This is something I wanted to start to hopefully eventually be able to help crime victims and so on and so forth down the line as the channel grows. So we have a lot of ambitions for the future in helping people. So I appreciate all of that support because it goes towards those things. And obviously being able to create better content for you guys, like the bigger channels. So I appreciate all of you guys. Let's see. You're welcome. Best channel on YouTube. Thank you so much, PE Blinders. You've been super supportive. You're amazing. All right, let's go ahead and finish playing this and listen to this is another statement that was given in court.
This witness, Eduardo Cortez, he was a school resource officer. He described the arrest of Karmelo Anthony. He said an adult pointed out the suspect and said, "That's the guy. I called him towards me. I patted him down. I had him raise his arms and ordered him to walk with me along that fence line. He obeyed me. He didn't try to run away. I turned on my body-worn camera, had him place his hands behind his back, and had him detained." The thing that most shocked me was that a student brought a knife to a track meet, and this witness agrees that that alone was unprecedented. Then on cross-examination, this witness agrees that Karmelo Anthony was emotional, said the knife is under 5 inches, actually not prohibited, it's not illegal, not a crime. So that's what I was mentioning there, of this witness speaking about it that way. But that body camera footage, Latif, it was played inside of the courtroom today. That is always really important for jurors to see as much as they can. And here, they get to see the body camera not of days later when police catch someone, but right after it happens, this school resource officer is on the scene.
Right, and the body-worn camera presumably captures some spontaneous statements, excited utterances made by Mr. Anthony in the moment of the event while it's still on his mind and heavy on his heart. So oftentimes these body-worn cameras, which capture the aftermath of the incident, are best evidence because they capture things that are said and things that are done before anybody has time to consult with an attorney and develop a defense to what the particular charges are.
Al, what do you think about the weight of that body camera? Because I do want to add some of the notes that we're getting from the courtroom that you can hear on it, a handful of crying students. One child yells out, "That's my best friend, that's my brother," while crying and trying to come at Karmelo Anthony is our understanding of that moment. I mean, there's so much sobbing when it comes to these children and the trauma that they're going through. And you're also hearing that sobbing in the courtroom. And this is something that is very compelling evidence, I would think, for these jurors.
Absolutely. But you know what I didn't hear? They were trying to kill me. I was feared for my life. I had nothing I could do. I had to do this to be able to get out of there because they were going to take my life. They were going to kill me. They were going to beat me to a pulp. I didn't hear any of that. So the self-defense argument starts to kind of fade a little, because that's at the moment when he's confronted by this officer and has the chance to say, "Listen, I did this because I had to. If I didn't, I would not have been able to get out of that tent. They were trying to beat me up. They were trying to do something to me. They were trying to kill me." You don't hear that. So I think that's going to be very important with regards to the prosecution's case. And of course, you hear those other cries going in the background. I mean, that's just an emotional aspect of it. It just shows you just how horrific this crime is.
Yeah.
It's a terrible thing. And I mean, I feel terrible for both individuals, honestly. I hate to see that this Mr. Anthony has ruined his life with this ridiculousness of bringing on a knife to a track meet and going into the opposite field, the opposing team's domain. And why?
We're going to talk about that. We're going to talk about that, Al. We have a lot we're going to get to this hour, and that's part of it. How did tent culture impact who was the aggressor in this fight? We're going to be talking about that later this hour. But coming up, we're talking about the words of Karmelo Anthony and what they mean. There was that one coach who kept him from leaving that track meet. What did he observe the 17-year-old do and say immediately after the stabbing? We'll have that next.
Okay, so we're going to take a break from that and we're going to pull up. CBS had posted live updates and they were talking about it says that 36 minutes ago, witness accounts Austin Metcalf's shove of Karmelo Anthony. On cross-examination, defense attorney Toby Shook asked the witness to describe the Metcalf and Anthony's movements leading up to the stabbing. The witness said Anthony was seated with his backpack in his lap and his hand inside. Metcalf approached Anthony and then pushed him by placing both of his hands on Anthony's shoulders. Anthony then pulled the we know what out of his backpack and pushed Metcalf back while also pushing that into his chest. You know what the object is. There's another update that says witness on moment after Metcalf was stabbed. He lifted up his shirt where his chest was all bloody. The witness then recounted what happened after the stabbing. Austin fell down the bleachers onto his back and he got up. He said he lifted up his shirt where his chest was full of you know what. And he said, I think I got stabbed. The prosecutors then asked about Metcalf's shove of Anthony. I would say it was a light shove, or I wouldn't say it was a light shove or a hard shove. I would say it was more of an in between, the witness said. The witness also said that Austin Metcalf's brother Hunter was not involved. In the defense's opening statement, attorney Mike Howard said that both Metcalfs confronted Anthony and that Anthony made a split-second decision out of fear. So that was last updated. Let's look at this other update. Austin Metcalf's teammate recounts what led up to the event. After a lunch break, the prosecution called a Memorial High School track athlete to the stand who witnessed the fatal encounter between him and his teammate, between his teammate. Austin Metcalf and Karmelo Anthony. The judge prohibited the media from identifying the witness. The witness said that by the time he arrived, Anthony was already under the Memorial High School tent in the bleachers at Kendall Stadium. The witness recounted that he and other Memorial athletes under the tent asked Anthony to leave multiple times. At first, it was not aggressive, he said, but then tensions escalated. I remember Karmelo refusing to leave and Austin saying, you need to leave. And then Karmelo saying, touch me and find out, the witness said. The witness also denied that anyone was ganging up on Anthony and that Anthony was the one provoking the situation. The defense is arguing that Anthony acted in self-defense. Austin leans in to push him and Karmelo stabbed him, the witness said. Karmelo had his hands inside a backpack and we thought it was a bluff. He said he and others didn't believe Anthony would do anything because they live in a safe community. Again, it comes back to you're 17 years old. That's not where your head goes when you're having like a verbal altercation with people. At least that's my belief. So let's continue to read the updates from CBS because I know that you guys are not liking Court TV. Court TV is one of the only ones that are doing this like live coverage as well. And of course, since cameras can't be in the courtroom, we're just working with what we have. Let's read this other update. Metcalf's parents break down as jurors watch body cam video of paramedics trying to save their son. Next, the prosecution played the body cam footage showing paramedics using CPR to try and save Metcalf's life. Metcalf is seen in his athletic wear lying on the ground and unresponsive. In the video, students can be heard wailing. As the video played, Metcalf's mother and father were wrapped in the arms of family members as they both broke down in tears. Anthony watched the video intently along with the jurors. And then they talked about the Frisco police officer who found the murder weapon, testified as well. A second officer was called to the stand, Frisco police officer Jacob Shawls. He also responded to the scene of the fatal stabbing of Metcalf and found the knife allegedly used in the crime approximately 3 to 4 rows up above the crime scene. Shawls responded when asked where he found the weapon. Shawls also found Anthony's backpack. He shared that he protected the evidence and covered it up due to the rain. The jury was then shown a photo of the knife, which appears to be a 5-inch folding knife with blood on it as they lay it as it lay on the ground in the bleachers of the stadium. A photo of Anthony's backpack open was shown. Both items have been entered into evidence by the prosecution. Fresno police officer testifies about Karmelo Anthony's comments after his arrest. I'm not alleged I did it. The next witness called by the prosecution on Friday was Frisco police officer Eduardo Cortez, a school resource officer and reportedly the first officer to make contact with Anthony. Cortez said he received a call concerning the stabbing as he was working inside a nearby school. When he arrived to the scene, he saw the crowd under the memorial track tent and saw Anthony. I had the suspect raise his hands in the air. I gave him instructions. Cortez testified I patted him down for any weapons. Cortez said I advised that I had the alleged suspect detained in handcuffs. Then he told the jury that Anthony responded, "I'm not alleged, I did it." The prosecution then asked Cortez if Anthony said anything else. When we placed him in the squad car, he asked if he would be okay. Cortez said he was asked if Anthony had any noticeable injuries. There was a little blood on his left middle finger. Cortez testified. Prosecutors asked the officer about the policy and whether weapons are allowed on school property. They are prohibited, Cortez replied. Then the prosecution had a 4-minute body camera video played of when Cortez encountered Anthony, placed him in handcuffs, and sat him down before searching his person. In the video, Anthony can be heard crying and saying as the officer walks him to the car, "I told him not to put his hands on me." He is then put into a patrol car and gives the officer his name and spelling. During cross-examination, the defense asked Cortez, "When you go back to the car and open the door, do you remember him crying once you and the officer are in the squad car?" "Did I see tears coming down from his face? I can't testify to that because I didn't see his face. My description was based on the tone of his voice," Cortez replied. The defense asked questions concerning Anthony's compliance with officers. He's not resisting, not struggling, not continuing to run. Cortez answered no to all of them. As the second day of testimony in the murder trial of Karmelo Anthony began on Friday, the prosecution wasted no time in calling its first witness, a firefighter from Frisco Fire Department. Neil Adams said his crew responded to the Kai Kendall Stadium after being notified of the stabbing. He shared the graphic details of the finding of the victim. Metcalf, as the prosecution showed photos of the scene. Adams said Metcalf's pupils were fixed, dilated. He was gray. No respirations. He did not have a pulse. During Adams' testimony, Metcalf's dad put his head in his own lap as Metcalf's mother wiped away tears. So that is, let's make sure that they didn't add anything else to the live updates there, because I don't know if they've added anything new. We went over the witness. Okay, the shove. So there's nothing that's added there just yet. We're going to keep on refreshing that. And then we can go back to court TV. Let's just see what they're going to say here. Oh, this is showing outside the courtroom. I'm going to turn the camera off while this is running for a minute. I'm going to run to the washroom.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. This hour, we are following a trial involving teens, a track meet, and tragedy. Texas versus Karmelo Anthony is unfolding now. No cameras allowed inside of that courtroom, but we can let you know that that lunch break that they were on is over. Testimony has resumed. The Frisco Police Department deputy who was on the stand, Jacob Shawls, he wrapped up his testimony saying he was aware of the school's no weapons policy, and also that sometimes she, as an officer, carries a similar knife as a tool. This was during the cross-examination of that officer. So we'll keep monitoring what's happening there inside of the courtroom because our Cody Thomas is there. He's taking notes. We are monitoring those notes, and we'll bring you the details as they unfold. We're also talking about this hour the actions of Karmelo Anthony that happened after the stabbing of 17-year-old Austin Metcalf. It's all going to be considered as a part of the body of evidence in this murder trial. You have the prosecution that's highlighting that Karmelo Anthony fled the scene of a stabbing while the defense suggests that he went directly to the people in charge. There was an athletic trainer, Tiffany Whitaker, who was on the stand, and she said that she instructed another coach, Vincent Hooper, not to let Karmelo leave the area. So what do these actions say about murder or self-defense? Let's bring back in our guests who've been talking with us all hour on this one. We have criminal defense attorneys Lateef Gray and Al Wunsch. Great to have you both on. Al, let me start with you. We talked about it a little bit before, but the words that he said afterward, if there was any remorse, and we'll get to some of the details of what that officer, or not the officer, but the coach rather, who actually put his arm around him and walked away with Karmelo Anthony, those words are going to be important. But just first, the actions. He walked to some point, and then you have a coach that says, don't let him leave. We don't know if that means he was trying to leave or if he was waiting for those coaches. The defense is characterizing it one way versus the other. But that action itself, how important is that to the jury's determination?
Well, it looks like he's trying to leave. I mean, obviously there is look. There was no way he was getting away at this point. Anyway, they had enough people that were able to identify him, and it was obviously a confusing situation. But his actions are always going to be looked at, and going with where it happened at the moment. Anything he does is going to be magnified, a dozen times for the jury to examine, and for the state and for the defense to try to, hammer home a point with. In this type of an instance, though, there's no one, he's not crying out, listen, I had no other choice. I couldn't, it's the only thing I could do. It was my life or his. You don't hear any of that, which is, kind of tough now that you're yelling that it's a self-defense situation. Why wouldn't that have been brought up? That would have been the first thing I would have said. Listen, I didn't want to do this. I had to. There was no way I wouldn't have gotten out of there otherwise. So I think that's going to be a big blow to the defense, argument that this is a self-defense case. I don't think it's a self-defense case. I have never from the beginning thought it was a self-defense case. They're making a lot of ground up to try to prove that point, to show that point. And you got all those people protesting and everything else. But, the facts just don't fit.
Let's look at the words of the witness who was on the stand. So this is a prosecution witness. This is Vincent Hooper. He's a head football coach at Heritage High. So that's not a school that's associated with Karmelo Anthony or the stabbing victim, Austin Metcalf. But this is a track meet. There are lots of schools and coaches there. And he said on the stand, I put my arm around him and asked, what did you do? And then Karmelo Anthony responded, he, meaning Austin Metcalf, put his hands on me. And the witness said, if he dies, you just changed the rest of your life. Karmelo's response was, he's not going to die. Then I said, but if he does? And Karmelo then starts crying like it's just now registering. On cross-examination of this same witness, this coach said that he doesn't think that Karmelo Anthony actually thought that Austin was going to die. He was crying. I believe his emotions were genuine. Karmelo did not try to run from me, was another point brought up on cross-examination. Lateef, what are these words telling you? It sounds like there's remorse, but does remorse negate an intent to murder?
Well, it appears that there is remorse. It's showing me that maybe he didn't mean to kill this person, which it sounds like for all intents and purposes, he didn't mean to kill this person. But I don't know that this will save the day, given that there may be some evidence presented that he tried to flee, which if he did try to flee, the prosecutor is going to argue that that shows consciousness of guilt. So these statements that he made under the stress of the event, they're important, but whether they will save the day for him is a whole nother story.
Al, what are you thinking when you're hearing these words from a witness, a coach on the stand who was right there after it all happened? He's the one who just randomly was told, catch that kid, put your hand on him, don't let him leave. He doesn't even really know himself what all is happening.
Well, I have to hand it to the coach, he's trying to calm him down. He's trying to keep him, he's trying to keep him in the place there and everything else. And he's having a life lesson with him, which, basically you're right. This is a horrible thing. And, if this kid dies, your life has changed forever. But once again, he put his hand on me or whatever. This still doesn't mean anything, except that I will say that it makes me feel somewhat good that Karmelo is showing some remorse on this, and that that is at least a human response with regards to same, and that may help a jury say maybe this was not murder, it was manslaughter. So
Al, does that mean he takes the stand? A follow-up, Al, does that mean he should take the stand, or is this speaking enough for him?
So we'll pause it there. I'm watching you guys in chat. So yeah, Henry Nowak was walking home and a man started to follow him. Long story short, he starts to fast-paced walk, semi-run, and he is same thing. We got to come up with a word, STAB, to death. And what was alleged was that he actually started a problem. The man who hurt Henry, well, murdered him, they were saying that he did something to them. The brother was saying, "Oh yeah, I watched him do this to my brother," and this was a self-defense situation. And then come to find that was nowhere near the truth. So it's another case, but it's out of the UK. A very young person as well. So we'll be going over that. But that was another one that's being talked about. It's a very sad case. Let me scroll back in the comments. I'm always trying to keep up with you guys. And police didn't help him. They stood there and they just watched him bleed out, basically, in the UK. So we'll be going over that case. I plan to go over that case. If you guys haven't heard of it, you look it up, but I'll be covering that and talking about it, because a lot of people, I think, aren't familiar.
No, he has to take he has to take the stand. He has to take the stand. He has to be able to tell why he had that knife with him, why he went into that tent. I mean, because, the excuse that they seem to be giving that, oh, he was just kind of going in there to, talk to someone whose girlfriend's friend was friends with the other one. And I mean, I would have probably had a better argument if I had said he went in looking for some Grey Poupon, and therefore that's why he had the knife, because he spread mustard. Okay. But to say that he went in there for any other legitimate reason other than to provoke, because that's what.
First name. So my first name is Nicole. Sorry, guys. I know a lot of people say like PH Nicole, but Nicole's my first name.
What he did. I mean, when I played football, we had an expression. Okay, it was stay away from the bench unless you're looking for a brawl. That was what they instilled in us from day one of freshman football camp. You stay away from the bench unless you're looking for a brawl.
With Navan, things are a lot more chill down here in finance. The whole company bend at it together.
We take that very personally because that's our home. So you're an interloper in my home. You have come in unwanted, uninvited into my home. Athletes take that very seriously. He should have known that, okay? And he should not have been there. There was no legitimate purpose other than to incite and to get a response. And he did.
Lateef Gray, what are your thoughts on that in terms of him taking the stand, that he has to do it, self-defense case? Of course, we just covered the case out in South Carolina. It was a self-defense case, defense of others, and Rick Chow did not take the stand and was acquitted. But what do you think about whether or not, because of how the evidence is coming out about his response, does he have to take the stand to explain other things in this case?
I think he does have to take the stand. In the Chow case, there was a witness, his son, who sort of spoke and developed the self-defense element. In this case, Mr. Anthony has to get on the stand and explain what kind of fear he was under at the time he decided to use the knife. And he has to explain and prove that he was under imminent fear of deadly bodily injury. So he does have to get on the stand to explain other things in addition to why he used the knife at the time he used the knife.
We're going to keep talking about this case in real time to let our viewers know what is coming out of that courtroom. There was a new witness on the stand, Stephanie Martin. This is witness number 9. They're moving through witnesses rather quickly. We have a criminalist who is with the Frisco Police Department, and she is talking about the photos of the scene, showing them the blue tarp, the stabbing victim's shoe, the defendant's backpack, a tent in the bleachers. When we come back, Al, you've been talking about this already, so we're going to dig into this topic. The tent culture. How did it impact who may have been the aggressor in this fight? Is it important? Was Karmelo Anthony?
So, chat, you guys let me know, but I think that it reminds me almost of when I played softball back in the day. The other team didn't come in our dugout. That was not a thing. Everyone stayed, at the end of the game, you shook hands, you did your stuff. No one was in and out of each other's dugouts, whether we knew people on the opposing team or not. You are in competition mode. You have friends that are on the other team, but that's not what's going through your mind, right? And I know with football, especially, people aren't socializing across the field, one team to the other. You just don't see that. And so I in my opinion, I agree with that to be in another team's tent, it's like being in another team's dugout or whatever. You're not supposed to be there. You know what I mean? This is what was it? It was the national championship, national championship, I think, for the track teams. So that's just my opinion. And I have heard that Texas is it's a big deal when it comes to the sports. So, again, to me, there's a lot of different layers here. And if you play sports, you know that when people are in competition and competitive mode, it's taken seriously. You don't intermingle. Your friends that you're friends with, you talk to after the game. But when we were playing against each other, I was all in with my team, and that was it. Most sports are like that. So exactly. You didn't go into the opposition team, dugout, none of that. Exactly. Yeah, we never went into the opposite dugout. You never did. Like I said, I had friends that played on the team that I'm about to play, and you might wave or whatever. We'll talk after the game, but we did not intermingle in those areas during, game time, and especially before the track meet. You're stretching, you're with your team. If it was just meant to be an intermingling event, then why would they have specific tents for specific schools? So let's see where this ended up with this. I keep checking CBS, by the way, for other updates. Nothing has been updated yet, but I know that there seems to be a lot of witnesses today, and it seems to be a lot of like the police, first responders. They've gotten through those. I think they're moving through witnesses like friends, people that were standing around, that kind of thing. They have not posted, at least CBS has not in the last hour, any additional information just yet. So I'm keeping an eye on that as we watch Court TV, just so you guys know. Anybody who is just now getting into the live, just please be sure to like the live for me. I appreciate you guys. Subscribe to the channel. If you're new here, we have the best, most positive kind channel. I swear our community here is amazing. I love that everyone gets in these lives and they can catch up and ask about, how are your kids or whatever. A lot of you guys a good amount of you actually have been with me from the beginning. And it really humbles me to have so much support. So I'd appreciate you guys. And if you're new, welcome. I hope you guys enjoy the content. I'm going to be making lives a regular thing. I know in the beginning with Charlie Kirk, I was doing them consistently, and then I kind of stopped. I had house fire stuff going on, and so I had to get through that stuff. But now I'm ready to jump back on. And what I'm planning to do is like Monday through Friday, and it's going to be at the same time every day. That way you guys just know, and it's going to be just like a daily show. Obviously, when it's a daily show, we're going to have to probably make sure it's like an hour, hour and a half, not 2.5 hours, 3 hours like they are now when they're sporadic. But I do want to get, back on schedule where every day we're doing something and we're talking about certain topics. So just so you guys know, that's going to be a new thing that is going to be going on. So be on the lookout. Make sure that you guys are always subscribed to the channels that you guys like, because I've heard a lot of people tell me that YouTube is unsubscribing them. It's turning off alerts, all kinds of stuff. They're not finding out when a video is posted. It's not showing up in their FYP anymore, even though they're following. So just be sure to check on that stuff, for the creators that you like and you want to make sure you support them.
Our son.
Oh, this is the mom. So I was telling you guys about this earlier. The mother made a speech because the family is being doxxed. People are threatening them. And so she did speak at a press conference the other day. So they're going to play a portion of that.
Deserve the same rights under the law that everyone is afforded to.
When self-defense is raised by the facts, the law puts the burden squarely on the prosecution.
I decree,
He could have gotten out of the tent in no time. It's not like he's in a cornered in a area in an alleyway.
When someone is allegedly pushed or touched, I just want to see if the law will be applied in the same way it's been applied in other cases.
Welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia Janae. Thank you for being with us. This hour, we are following a trial that involves teens, a track meet, and tragedy. And in that case, there's a big question about where it all happened. I do want to let you know what is happening inside of that courtroom. There are no cameras allowed, but here at Court TV, we are sharing the details as they unfold via our Cody Thomas, who is sitting inside of that courtroom. And what we understand from the notes is that a criminalist has been on the stand. They're talking and have been showing this jury about the crime scene photos that were taken. They even found the belongings of Karmelo Anthony. They're looking at his clothing, his backpack, and his belongings, and it looked like the hoodie that it seems like he was wearing had a small blood stain on it. We heard from the school resource officer that he noticed blood on the middle finger of the defendant or the suspect at the time. This criminalist also said that the backpack was open and the front part was closed when this witness was asked about how the backpack was collected. On cross-examination, the defense asked questions about whether or not there were other things inside of that backpack, like an Elmo screen, snacks, charger, cable, and homework. So that cross-examination is going on right now. We will keep you informed on what happens there. We're monitoring it, and Cody Thomas will be joining us live with reports there on the ground when he is able to come out of court. While we're continuing to talk about this case, though, we are dissecting, was Karmelo Anthony the initial aggressor because of where he sat? He was sitting under a rival school's tent. It's a topic being heavily discussed inside of this murder trial by those witnesses. And while the jurors ultimately have to determine whether the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf was justified or unjustified, these happenings before and after the killing by both teens are important. So before we talk about tent culture, here's what happened according to witnesses yesterday.
If you're buying an LED mask this year, here are my...
I'm seeing comments talking about like when is the next subject. So specifically with this going on, I plan to only cover this in the lives. My lives are going to probably be when I'm talking about a trial. We're going to stick to that trial. And then there'll be other lives where it's going to be whatever is in the title and on the thumbnail. So this was strictly just to be about this and to get caught up on where we're at as we go through these days of trial. The topics where we're going to be talking about certain things that people request. The members only area is going to be an area specifically for people that are members of the channel. They could kind of throw in what they would like covered. I do see some people talking about like, oh, can you cover AI and certain things about like astronauts and stuff? Like that's not really stuff that I'm interested in and that I feel personally invested in. So there's not really much that you're probably going to see of like talking about AI and talking about certain topics, especially with certain divisive things, just because people right now are very on edge. And I am not going to do all this arguing with people. I have 2 stress-triggered illnesses. So for me, there are certain things that I will talk about and there's certain things that I won't, just because I'm not going to do that. There's some people that literally come on here just to argue and be nasty because they just are unhappy people. I'm not going to take the brunt of their misery. And it usually surrounds certain topics. And so I'm really enjoying getting more into the true crime. I could still stick with, the Charlie Kirk conspiracy theory, truth telling around certain things. But I am absolutely finding that when you talk about certain topics, I am not going to have people, I'm just not going to be someone's punching bag to tear me down up and down in the comments. And all that stuff. It's just, for me, it's not something I want to go through. Again, you're going to have people that don't like you. That's fine. It's just, I want to try to keep the channel also positive, even though we're talking about things that are controversial or sad or, disgusting all the way around. I still want to keep the environment of the channel positive and inspiring in a lot of ways too. So, for me, that's where I'm at. There are plenty of channels that are talking about AI and all this stuff. And here's the thing. Yeah, that stuff is very real. But at the same time, when you continue just to harp on so many negative things, and here the thing with me is I'm going to be real with you guys always. I'm always going to tell you how I really feel. And how I really feel is that perception is not reality. Perception is important, how people perceive things, but it doesn't make it fact. So you could think that something is a certain way and it's not. You are not behind closed doors. There's a lot of things that we are not privy to really knowing what's going on. And people are so stuck on harping on these negative things. We'll take a break from this for 5 minutes to explain this, because this is really, truly in my heart how I feel. And they want to harp on this negative and harp on this negative and believe that this person's bad and this person's bad and everyone's bad and everything's bad. If you have that mindset, what is the point in carrying on every day throughout the rest of your life till your purpose has been fulfilled and it's your time to go home to the Lord? I mean, we can't continue to do that. I mean, just because we do have conspiracies, and a lot of conspiracies, and this is coming from me. I've been a conspiracy theorist for like a bajillion years. Not everything is a conspiracy. Not everything is, what you think it is. That's just the facts. Not everything has a conspiracy. And I think we're at the point where, because we've been lied to so much and it's obvious in a lot of areas, that it means everything has to be false. Everything has to be fake. Everything is a lie. Nothing is real. Everyone is bad. There's no good people left. And I'm like, how do you guys go to bed at night if you are so wound up about all these negative things and all, like everything is just evil and like, I pray about that stuff and I give it to God, and then I wake up the next day and I try to do better for myself and for my husband and for other people and for God, and I pray on things and I give it to God, because at the end of the day, no one is saving this country or you or me but him. Period. End of story. Full stop. There's nothing I can do. It's in his hands. So to sit here and worry and harp and harp and harp and harp, you can only do it so much. And eventually, I'm going to tell you what, you manifest that enough into your body, you hold on to that, it makes you sick. And I just don't, there's a lot of that going on. And I just don't think like that. I just don't think that, everything is more than face value sometimes, whether people like it or not. That's the truth. Yeah. And I just think people are staying wound up and they're looking for a reason to be mad versus grateful, happy, so on and so forth. And I think that when you're covering, all these different topics too, and, in a negative light, I don't think it is good for you, I disagree, though. Too many people waiting for God to do something instead of working together on solutions and believing we can change things. The only way you can change things is if that's God's will. It's God's will. No matter what you think about us coming together, we will all come together if that's God's will. That's the difference. The book was written before we all got here. If the world is if it is already said and God has a date and a time and a place picked out, there's nothing you or I can do to change that. That's the truth. That's my truth. I can only control myself and how I treat others and what I put out into the world. I cannot convince this whole country to get together and do, a revolt or something, you know what I mean? And stop paying taxes, for instance. That, because at the end of the day, that's what it would take, is everyone coming together, because there's more of us than these bad people. But is that going to happen? I don't know. But what I can control is I can control myself, my beliefs, and wake up the next day, be a good person, be an honest person, treat people with respect and kindness, and be that change on my end. So again, the plan for the channel is, I have lupus and fibro. So I can't go to a job every day and carry heavy equipment and things like I used to working in surgery. This became something that I was like, you know what? I would love to have a podcast. I would love to do long form content talking about crime and all these different things. What I hope to do is eventually also, be able to put together, a, hopefully, a business that would help save children and help, victims of crimes and their families, in some positive way, and be part of the change and part of the good on that side, right? And so as I'm able to create better content and as the channel continues to grow, eventually I want to branch off into making a positive impact on the community, in the world, really, if I can. So that's where I'm at. I am not going to, you know what I mean, see the glass half empty. The glass is always half full. It just depends on how you look at it. I could look at, for instance, well, we're taking this little interlude, of my dad, being gone. And yes, my dad, will be gone 3 years, and it devastates me. And it's something that I think about every day. But I could tell you what, I find a lot of gratitude in the fact that I had a good dad. He didn't beat me. He was involved. He coached my softball teams. He drove me to every ballet recital. He was at every ballet recital. He was funny. We listened to rock music together. He used to take road trips, like just one-on-one with each of us kids. And we have so many memories. And so you could sit there and you could look at it and be like, I lost my dad at 34 years old. I feel robbed. Or I could be like, I had the best dad ever, and he was amazing, and he loved me and I loved him. And I have so many memories. I have so many trips. I have so many things. Even when my parents didn't even have any money, like my dad had holes in his clothes, but we got everything on our Christmas list. You know what I mean? You have to look at it that way. It's either a blessing or a lesson. You know what I mean? And so there's good and bad in everything, but there's good to be found in bad things. I do love what I do now. I actually feel very, very fulfilled in this. Obviously growth takes time, and I'm not for everyone. I know that. And it can be discouraging, if I'm being honest, and I'm human, and you see other people that their channels are bigger or they're moving faster than you, but I am moving at the pace that I'm meant to move at. And everyone's journey is different. Everyone's pace is different, and that's okay. But I will say that I'm always going to be me. I'm always going to be honest. And even when it's probably not the popular opinion at all, because I've always been like that. Yeah. And that's what I have to do. I have to worry about staying true to myself and being authentically me. And that's not going to be something everyone likes. So, popularity contests are just not my thing. So, we probably got off on a tangent there, but I'm just saying there's good and bad in everything. People can look at AI and go, okay, it's all bad. But you can look at it also and be like, hey, other parts of the world, such as China, are so advanced in AI. And so if you don't get up with the times, as they would say, you know what I mean? You're going to be screwed. You know what I mean? They're going to use it against you. So it's like one of those things where it's like, that's just my opinion. I'm like, yes, I could understand one side of the coin, but I can also sort of understand the other side. And I also believe it's very much like there's one person's story, and the truth, right? And I was going to talk about this actually. Two things can coexist at the same time. You could love somebody and still not, for instance, like everything they do, right? Like I could like Candace Owens and say, I think she's doing great with the Charlie Kirk investigation, but not agree with everything that comes out of Candace's mouth. We've come to a point where people feel that you can't do that. It's like, oh, well, you don't agree with every single thing that comes out of her mouth. I'm unsubscribing from your channel. Okay, but Candace isn't God either. So she makes mistakes. She's not a perfect person. And not everything that comes out of her mouth is fact. That's just period. End of story. That's anybody. People don't want to hear that. We're at a point where like people are so offended by hearing that. And I'm like, what is even, I feel like I live in the Twilight Zone a lot of the times. And so that's been discouraging in itself, because not one person has it all figured out and has it all right and has all the answers and should be, you know, and again, it comes back to, you know, I'm not going to idolize anybody. There's only one person I idolize, God, period. That's the only person I worship. And when you sit on your high horse and you're like, oh, she says nothing wrong, that this person says it does nothing wrong, what do you call that? You know what I mean? It's all becoming very, it's not okay. And so it's me figuring out also where and how to say that, where it's perceived, like the delivery is nice, because I feel like we're in a time where everything is so volatile, everything is so heated, everything is so offensive, everyone's like easily offended. You could say bless you and that would offend somebody. So it's just one of those things where yeah, I just think we're at a point where it's really difficult to figure out how to maneuver that stuff sometimes, and especially on the internet. This is the internet. You know, again, I've always felt like I have a microphone. I have people that watch me on the other side of this screen and listen to the words that come out of my mouth. And I want to be a good example. I don't want to be a bad example. And I take that very seriously, because you don't know, you know, who's listening and how that could impact them or their day or their mindset. And I never want to do that in a negative way. So, yeah, I just think there's a lot of people out there that, you know, it's like, oh, well, this is like the viral opinion and this is the popular opinion. And so they're on this like bandwagon, but it's like, but what happened to truth? Because truth isn't the popular opinion. Truth is not the funnest, most digestible thing to say. Yeah, I don't know. What did Candace say that is bothering you? There's nothing specific bothering me. I was using an example. But I do think that, well, in the past, like, you know what I mean? Just in general, where I'll talk about certain things and, you know, I'll say, oh, well, I don't really agree with like this part of what Candace thinks. And then it's like, oh, well, I can't believe you. You know what I mean? I'm just saying in general, like, I don't lose sleep over any one particular person. So there's nothing that's bothering me. You didn't miss anything. It was just an example. So yeah, let's move this back a minute. There also was another update that came out 8 minutes ago with CBS. So let's go over that really quick. So its teammate says stabbing was not self-defense, describes being provoked. So 16-year-old witness, a wide receiver who also runs hurdles and the 400 in track, said the day felt completely normal before the stabbing. He recalled nothing unusual going on that day and noted that the rain was not bad prior to the incident. What first caught his attention was an unfamiliar... my goodness, hold on, guys. Let me get water. Was an unfamiliar athlete, later identified as Karmelo Anthony, stepping directly into their team space. He walked up and stood in our tent, the athlete said. The witness immediately questioned why someone from another school would be there, saying it's kind of weird when other schools come and stand under our tent. According to him, Austin Metcalf confronted Karmelo Anthony right away. Austin asked him why he's in the tent, but the situation didn't resolve. Austin asked him multiple times to leave our tent, and he proceeded not to. The teen witness says he did state multiple times that he had something in his bag. The witness said Austin Metcalf grew visibly irritated, explaining that Austin seemed frustrated and that Austin just wanted him out of there. Then everything escalated in an instant. He said Carmelo Anthony nudged Austin Metcalf and then stabbed him. Chaos followed. He recalled that everyone started freaking out. Austin Metcalf, in shock, kept repeating, "I got stabbed." The witness also said Hunter Metcalf was present throughout the entire incident and emphasized no one saw this coming. As for Anthony's exit from the tent, the witness described it as strangely calm. It was really odd. He added, I think he, meaning Carmelo Anthony, was just trying to get away. He said he believed the incident was not self-defense, saying Carmelo Anthony provoked the incident. So that is, let me refresh again, that is the most recent update on CBS right now. So here we are with another witness. So I'm guessing it won't be too long. That was 20 minutes ago that was posted. So there might be a cross. We'll play a little bit more of Court TV just to see what Court TV says. Let's see. Let's see. I'm just trying to read through the comments for a minute. Let's see. Just my opinion. I fully believe that Carmelo left his house with the intent to do something. He may not have known what it was, but he was going to do something. Yeah. And I talked about this earlier where, there are incidents where people, they have those things on them with the intention of like, they're going to instigate something and then it's there if they need it, but they're looking for trouble. And I think that that's what is being talked about here.
Determine whether the fatal stabbing of Austin Metcalf was justified or unjustified. These happenings before and after the killing by both teens are important. So before we talk about tent culture, here's what happened according to witnesses yesterday. The details are that Austin Metcalf and his friends arrived first. About 2 minutes later is when Carmelo Anthony entered the tent. Now, prosecutors say that Austin Metcalf pushed Carmelo Anthony, and that push can be seen on the surveillance video that jurors saw. It's estimated that Anthony and Metcalf were under the tent for about 4.5 minutes at the same time. So next, here's, according to witnesses, what may have prompted this verbal and physical confrontation, and it has a lot to do with tent culture. This is Robert Starr. He's the head track coach at Memorial High School, and he testified, just talking generally about track meets, that the tent marks your spot. What the tent represents is kind of like the benches in football, your bench and the opponent's bench. Your bench is your safe space, and it's a big deal to keep people out from under your tent. It's a lot of people and hormones. You want to keep kids as distanced as you can. Let's bring back in our guests who are standing by, because we're asking the question, was Carmelo Anthony's presence underneath that tent an aggressive initial act? We have Lateef Gray and Al Wunsch III with us. Al, you've been talking so much about the tent and tent culture, and I think it is important for those who may not have been as involved in high school athletics in this way. It may seem like it's just a tent and that the tent is there, especially if it's raining. If someone wants to get under it, should it be a big deal? What are your thoughts about what the coaches are saying inside of that courtroom?
Well, look, I mean, the tent is home. I've said this before. I said it just recently. It's your home. It's where your team is going to be, and it's your territory. Okay, Texas is a lot like New Jersey. There are no participation trophies, okay, in Texas, and there's no participation trophies in New Jersey. You're there to win a game. You're there to play with your team. You've got your fellow athletes with you. When somebody decides to disrespect you by walking into your tent, knowing that that is a disrespectful move on their part, knowing that he's only there to rattle, to antagonize, and to instigate. He wasn't there for a legitimate purpose. If he was there to say, listen, I'm coming in to tell you that, the meet's going to be canceled. They asked me to come over. That's a legitimate purpose for him to go in there, and then he leaves. He did not do that. He came in to provoke a response. He wanted to show that he could disrespect them. And you know what? That's a psych move. That's a move that you do to try to psych out your opponents, to show them, I have no fear of you. Okay, I have no respect of you. I don't care about you. And I'm going to show you exactly that by coming into your house and sitting down. Get me out.
Let's see if
how do I find time to make burgers for everyone at the
Again, I think the tent culture, I think it's a thing. I think it reminds me very much of a dugout. Or again, in football, do you see people walking up to hang out on the opponent's sidelines? Like, do you ever see in the NFL where people are on the opponent, like during the game or right before the game, where they're on each other's turf necessarily? No, you don't. At the end of the game, again, you shake hands, good game, good game, good game, and everyone goes about their day. They may talk on the field here and there, but they're not in each other's locker rooms and things like that. It's just, I do think when it comes to sports, this is a thing. So let's see if CBS update anything else while we listen to this.
Hear him on the stand. What was in the mind of this defendant? His defense attorney says that he was there to talk to friends, that he was chatting, he was sitting, and then he was approached for sitting there. So it's hard to know until we start hearing from the witnesses who were actually there in those bleachers. But what do you think about the fact that he was underneath this tent that belonged to a different team, and there was a light drizzle outside? I don't know how much the rain impacts things or whether that negates the policy or the unwritten rule there.
Well, the fact that he was in this tent is problematic given this tent culture, this bench culture in Texas. So it's going to be important that he get on the stand and explain why he was in that tent and give a viable explanation for why he was in that tent. And if he can't give a viable explanation for why he was in that tent, that inures to the detriment of his self-defense argument. So he's going to have to get up there and explain a lot of things that happened that day. And he's going to have to explain a lot of his actions, both preceding and after the stabbing.
Let's also look at more that we heard from that witness who was on the stand, who was talking about tent culture, and specifically in track culture, that you just understand that you don't go to another team's tent, especially uninvited. And then on cross, they did say that there were no rules that are preventing kids from roaming freely during that downtime. This was a downtime. The track meet had not started yet. This coach reiterates, though, that track athletes have an unspoken rule not to go under the other person's tent. Al, I'm really trying to dig into here, though, if that move of going under a tent, you talked about a bench and it being similar, if going there is the initial aggressive act that then in turn being grabbed or being pushed means that's okay, or does it not matter? Because even if this is a push that is inappropriate, it's still responding to that push with fatal force.
I'm going to pause this for 2 seconds just because of the comments. So you guys were talking about the why he was in the tent. So I can't wait for them to further get into the why he was in the tent. This was brought up yesterday after opening statements, where it was talked about that he supposedly saw someone who looked familiar to him in that tent. It was somebody that his girlfriend knows or his girlfriend's friends with. It was something along those lines was what was talked about a little bit yesterday. Whether that's true or not, we obviously haven't made it that far, but that was discussed yesterday. That's the alleged reason of why he was over there. Again, how true that is and if that's verified or what's going to end up being when it comes to witness testimony, which they're going through today, we will see. But that was something that was brought up yesterday, in case you guys didn't know that part.
Well, that's true. I mean, but the analogy to a football bench, as and I gave you the quote that we learned very early on. You stay away from the bench unless you're looking for a brawl, and that's what is the mentality that we're basically living with in that culture. When the game is on and when you're getting ready, and the pregame is almost as important as the game. Because that's when you're getting yourself into a mental position that you're going to be able to perform to the best of your ability, that you're going to be able to go out there and you're going to make your teammates proud and you're going to make yourself proud and know what you're doing. And you're trying to keep that concentration. When somebody comes in that's not supposed to be there, okay, that is a disrespectful act. And that act in and of itself demonstrates that he's trying to get at you. He's trying to psych you out. He's trying to show you that he's not afraid. Okay. And that has a very, can be very, very dilatory with regards to a situation where you're trying to get ready to do the best you can on the field. And you know what, Karmelo, I'm sure knows that. And about taking the stand, I hope he takes the stand because, I want them to see that this is a kid and that, this is a young man who made a very big mistake and took the life of somebody. But I'm hoping it's not going to be looked at as murder, as maybe a manslaughter situation. But I think that they need to see that this is a boy. I mean, he's a kid. And I mean, my heart is out for his family and for him. I just can't stand that somebody would have brought a knife to a game like that. It just blows my mind.
It's the
Never
reason
seen that
we
happen.
have these policies, the exact reason, because kids can be emotional and don't know how to handle weapons in a situation like that. But in this case, we have the loss of life of a 17-year-old, and all of that is going to be in the hands of the jury in the coming weeks. We're going to step aside really quickly. When we come back, there was quite an emotional moment inside of the courtroom yesterday, one that prompted jurors, including male jurors, to tear up, to be crying. We're going to talk about the exact moment that.
And that, this is a young man who made a.
Hey, wait, I needed.
So I think that court might be done for today. I mean, we still have some stuff we can go over here, which we will. Let me just make sure I didn't pass over something. I don't think I did. Okay. Let's see what this is. Or at least Court TV is not live anymore, I don't think. So we'll see what ends up happening.
Karmelo Anthony, thank you for being with us here at Court TV. I'm Julia Janae. We are following that trial out in McKinney, Texas, and we've just learned that a high school student is the next witness number 10 for the prosecution. This is the first high schooler, someone who would have been at that track meet, who has testified in this trial so far. We are getting those notes in. This case does not have cameras inside of the courtroom, but we do have our Cody Thomas, who is there monitoring everything for us. And what we're learning so far from those notes is that this is a school track and field athlete, a football player who was heading into his senior year, was at that track meet preparing to run the 800 meter that day that this happened, this tragedy that unfolded there. They went to see their middle school coaches as well before the track meet for about an hour. They were reminiscing about good times. The Metcalf brothers, the twins, they were there, and there were other people. And now this witness is describing the event. And I'm just going to read what these notes are saying as they are coming in. This is live inside of that courthouse. Karmelo came under our tent wearing Centennial gear. He was there hanging with Eddie, dapped up. They talked. I remember people confronting Karmelo saying, quote, "You probably shouldn't be here. You should maybe leave our tent." Austin, Tion, and I told him he should leave. We didn't stand up and gang up on him. I said, "Hey, you're in our tent. You don't need to be here." Numerous members of the team. Karmelo refusing to leave. Austin asked him to leave, and Karmelo said, "Touch me and find out." So we will continue to monitor what's happening there. Clearly, that high school student is beginning to talk about the most important part of this case. How did this happen? What led up to it? Let's bring back in our guest to react to what we're hearing inside of this courtroom. We have Al Wunsch III with us, Lateef Gray as well. Both trial attorneys taking this in, not only on the emotional level, but also the legal aspect of how important this high school student is. Lateef Gray, there are no cameras in this courtroom, and I think part of that, and tell me what you think, is because we have so many minors involved in this case, including a witness like this one on the stand.
I think that's a huge part of it. These minors, you don't want to necessarily show them on camera. And a lot of times you can't even use their full names. You have to use initials. So I think that's a huge part of it. And I think this witness's testimony is important for the prosecution because it goes to directly refute Mr. Anthony's claims that he was being ganged up on and was surrounded by people. So this testimony is very, very important for the prosecution.
Al Wunsch, I'm going to read a little bit more as it's coming in. Again, I was saying that multiple people were telling Karmelo to leave. He said, touch me and find out. He was getting angry. Both of them were getting angry. Karmelo was asked more than 10 times to leave the tent. It wasn't just Austin. People, including myself, were saying for him to leave. I thought it would get to minor pushing at most. I wasn't worried about it. This goes on for 2 minutes. Ostello and Karmelo, they are both getting more aggressive and angry. Your reaction to that, Al?
Well, it demonstrates to me that that was the reason why he was there. He wanted to provoke a response, and he got it. When the first person said, you know what, maybe not a good idea that you're here, leave the tent. He didn't. 10 people have to tell him, he still doesn't want to go. Okay, why was he there? He was there to try to prove a point. He was trying to prove a point that he could disrespect this team and that he doesn't care about this team and that this team.
So I'm going to pull this up really quick because I found a picture, and this is just to show, because I know that they were talking about the size of the boys. Remember when they were like, oh, well, they said, you know, if he was, you know, bigger and then his brother was standing right there. Now we're hearing from witnesses that the brother was not standing direct, you know, they both weren't ganging up on him, right? But I want to pull this picture up because this gives a better idea. This is probably the best picture I could find, if I'm being honest, about the size of the boys. To me, I mean, it's hard because there's football pads on, but I think that they look about the same. I mean, there's probably a height difference. And just so you guys could see them both in their football gear. And then what I'll do is we'll go out of this. And then what I'll do is I'll share my Google search just for you guys to see more pictures of the size of the boys, because I just think it gives us a better idea of, were they really that different in size? To me, the boys look pretty similar. This is a picture of Anthony arriving to the courthouse. I don't know how many people saw that. This is the gray suit that he had on that they were talking about yesterday. I think Metcalf might have been taller. Oh, here, I'm not even showing you guys. Pardon me, guys. Forgive me here. This gray suit over here is him arriving to court yesterday. So I'm thinking the sizes, to me, look about the same. I don't think that it's this huge difference where we're talking about where, just my opinion, where it's like you would be that afraid of somebody. Just my opinion. Let me see what this other witness thing is. Let's see. Hold on. Okay, so I ended up switching to NBC now as far as the information goes. I said like what's coming out with the court. And I can actually pull this up so you guys could see this article as well before we go back. If you guys want to hear any more interviews, I'm just curious what else they're gonna their reporter's gonna say. State calls third minor witness. This was posted 4 minutes ago. 17-year-old from Memorial High School. I wonder if this is one I already read you guys, because I feel like CBS is kind of ended up being faster for some reason. 17-year-old from Memorial High School. The prosecution called a third minor witness to the stand. 17-year-old from Memorial High School. He held a yellow stress ball in his hand as he testified. The witness said both his mom and sister were at the track on the day of the incident. His sister was on the track team and his mother was working concessions. The witness said his father had died recently, saying he was murdered by some man in California. He said he plays running back on the football team and that he was supposed to be at football camp today and missed it. The witness testified that he was at the tent putting on his shorts when he saw Austin talking to Karmelo. He said his sister was also under the tent. He described what he saw during the incident similar to what previous witnesses have described. He said after we'll just say unaliving, he and his sister ran, saying that he wanted to protect her. Stuff like this never happens. The witness said, not in Frisco. You cared a lot about Austin, didn't you? The prosecutor asked. Yes, sir. The witness said when Austin died, he lost one extra person who believed in him. When describing the interaction between Austin and Karmelo, the witness said that Karmelo provoked Austin. The state drilled down into the witness's use of the word provoke, asking whether he understood its legal significance. The witness says no, but that he thought it was the right word for what he saw. The witness said his sister will not testify because what she saw shook her more than it shook him. The witness's mom will not be testifying either. He testified that Austin told Karmelo, I'm not going to fight you at a track meet during the incident. The witness, like previous witnesses, told the jury that Austin did not want to fight, that Karmelo was the aggressor, and that the unaliving was not done in self-defense. That does not sound like self-defense the way he described it. So if that is what happened, and I'm curious because remember, we're hearing a lot. There were several kids in this tent. So my guess is they have a lot of witnesses to go through. Again, when they showed that video that Court TV's reporter talked about, there was a good amount of people surrounding that area, to my understanding. So I wonder how many people heard those statements. So when they get up there to say, hey, this is what was said, if the verbiage is the same and you have so many people saying, hey, this is what was really said, what happens from there? Because him saying, I'm not going to fight you at a track meet, if that is said, and if that was a statement given to police by several people that was what Austin said, I'm like, how do you keep pushing the self-defense claim? Already it was an uphill battle, in my opinion, to claim self-defense. But then you have statements like that. I think this is going to be a very, I don't know. It's and also again, it all comes back to, for me, where at the end of the day, you're at a school event. This is a track meet. I cannot get past, and I don't know how many people are going to be able to get past the weapon even being in the backpack. That right there is such a large factor for me that I just, I wasn't allowed to have that stuff. I mean, maybe my parents were very different. I wasn't allowed to, have a pocket knife or anything like that. Everything was put away from us because accidents happen, and my parents didn't ever want, you know what I mean? You hear stories about guns going off because kids got a hold of a gun and so on and so forth. So we didn't have the ability to get a hold of any of that kind of stuff anyway, let alone bring it to school. And if we brought it to school, my parents would have beat the crap out of me for that. You know what I mean? That is where I say Karmelo is guilty. No weapon at school. Period. Yeah, I wonder how many people see it that way. I would think majority of people would see it that way. Whenever I think about weapons being brought to school, I always go back to Columbine. You know what I mean? And there was, again, you talk about squirt guns that resemble that, you're expelled. I mean, when we were in school, again, you were expelled. That was a non-negotiable. There was no why did you have this? How did this get in there kind of conversation. If it was in there and they went to your locker and they opened it and it was in your locker or whatever, that was it. There was nothing else. You're out of here. They did not play games. You were expelled. It was done and over with. So for me, I think a lot of this is going to have to do with defending why it was there to begin with, why it was brought to a track meet for school. Okay, so that was NBC. Now we're going to go back and let's look at, let me refresh this again. I'm sorry, everybody. Clearly, I also can't wait for, as time goes, I want, my plan is whatever money the channel makes, I want to start going to court trials and covering them myself. Ones that are controversial, ones that do have that element like Karen Reed, where you have that corruption so that there is honest media. And I don't know. I would love that. I would love to get to a point too where I can travel for certain cases. And I don't know. I love this kind of stuff. So I'm all over all this. The Henry Nowak case, I'm so excited to cover. Unfortunate situation, but eventually, like I said, I would love to have a foundation that helps save children from crimes against children. Also help with people and families who are victims of crimes. And then just being able to cover some of these trials in person, for the ones that really would need honest, good coverage. All of them do, but there's ones that are, it's very apparent, like Karen Reed, where having, independent journalists, people who genuinely cared about the case out there to cover it firsthand. I was watching, that's actually how I got here with YouTube too, because I was, people were following me on TikTok, and every day I was talking about what went on. I sat in front of that TV day in and day out. Every day, you could ask my husband. I was like the 13th juror for the Karen Reed trial. And I would get on TikTok at the end of the day, and I would talk about what went on in court, and I would talk about my opinion on things. And people were like, why don't you do long form content? And really, I should have started my YouTube during the Karen Reed trial, but I ended up doing it after, mainly because, to be honest with you guys, for those of you that are new, I didn't ever see myself on YouTube. I didn't. I worked in medical device sales. I've been in the medical field forever. I never saw myself not being in the medical field until I got sick, and it just, I had no choice but to pivot in what I did every day. And so I was praying on it for 2 years. I'm like, God, what's my purpose? What do I do? Like, where do you need me to be? Whatever your will is. And it was like, start a podcast. And I was like, am I hearing stuff? And then I did it, and here I am, and I'm grateful, but I just never, it's not what I had envisioned, but I love it. I mean, I live for stuff like this, to cover stuff like this. So this is fun for me. It's a passion that along the way, people care what I have to say on things and want to listen, which is, crazy. But also it's been amazing. So for those of you that are new, that don't have that backstory, I wish my dad was here to see it live in action. He'd be all about it. He was always telling me, you need to do something on the internet. And I was like, no, I don't want to put my face out there like that. And then here I am. Hopefully I'm okay now. I have lupus and fibromyalgia, so both are not curable. It's just a new normal for me. So it's different, it's just, I'm not the same person I was prior to autoimmune. It's not, neither disease is easy, let alone the two together. But it's just figuring out what my new norm is and what my limits are, and growing a podcast and being able to do this stuff it's a manageable thing for my diseases. So I'm hoping that it works out, in the long run, that I can make something of this and it grow, and I can continue to bring you guys the best coverage and make the show better, and obviously get better with editing and all the things that come with time. So, but yeah, I had a rough couple years. For people that are new to the channel, I got diagnosed with fibromyalgia and lupus. Because of that, my boss let me go because they felt like it was going to affect my work, which it was. I was not going to be able to carry around equipment and do cadaver labs and stuff. And then after that, 3 days later, my grandpa died. A year later, the day my grandma that I took care of passed away. 5 months later, my dad died out of nowhere. And then that Christmas, I had a house fire and we lost everything. So I'm still getting my house back together. What you guys see in the background, this was all, this stuff is all getting fixed still. We still have a lot to get through. Homeowners insurance is not friendly when it comes to filing a claim. So we had the house fire, and that was all in a span of like 2.5 years. And then our dog almost died. We had to have emergency surgery for her, and that was like $11,000. We didn't have pet insurance. So we've had a rough couple years and on one income, and it's been rough. It's been very I will say that, I used to look and be like, why is this happening to me? Why is this happening to me? And then I realized you know, sometimes God has to move you in those ways. I'm not a quitter. So, like, even if I worked at a job where it wasn't the best fitting for me, but I'm such a hard worker, I would never just leave a place. So, I think that he knew that I needed to be moved around, right? And unfortunately, you have to go through some of these things to start anew and be the version of you that he wants you to be, where he wants you to be. And that was a part of the process. No one says it's never going to be easy. I don't think anything about adulting is easy. I don't think anything about life is easy. I expect ups and downs constantly more than I expect smooth sailing. That's just what life is. I could tell you that going through all that in the moment, I was distraught, heartbroken. I'm like, why me? And I look even now where I'm at and I go, oh my gosh, like, so much good has come from it, so much growth, knowledge. Again, when you guys watch my videos on my page, if I ever say like a lot, or sometimes I forget like what I'm saying, or I mess up a word, SLE lupus affects your brain, heart, and kidneys, for those of you that don't know. And unfortunately, when I got diagnosed, my symptoms were mostly neurological. So I get a lot of people that write on my videos sometimes like, oh, get to the point, or, oh, you say a lot. Well, I don't have media training. I don't read from a teleprompter. I do type up scripts sometimes just to keep myself from going off on a tangent. But I am human, and I am not Candace Owens level production yet. If I ever get there, but I'm just saying that, she's had a lot of years of media training, and you're trying to compare two different things. I'm not even a year into doing this. And so that comes with time, so that's okay. You got to start somewhere. But just so you guys know that's sometimes if you guys hear me and I'm like, oh, I lost my train of thought for a second, it's, and I don't have more expensive editing software yet to where I can like clip out like all that stuff necessarily. So I refilm stuff sometimes if it's like where I've like lost my train of thought that bad, but now I'm getting better about like bullet pointing things so that I don't forget, or you just deal with a couple ums. But my whole point is I like sharing my story. I like sharing what's happened to me, because there are people that are going through a rough time that are at the very beginning of their rough patch. And when you're in the beginning of that rough patch and things just keep happening and happening and happening, it's a lonely place to be. And it's very hard to see the light at the end of the tunnel or see what good could come from it, because you feel like you're just getting beat up left to right. And you are, but there's going to be something amazing that's going to come out of it. And I truly believe that this podcast is one, if not the biggest blessing that has come out of the 2.5 years of a mess. And so I just feel very humbled and blessed to have it. And so a lot of times when I get up and talk about things, it's just to let people know like you're not alone, and it's okay to be like, hey, today sucks, and it's okay to be sad, but then it's okay to also be like, okay, I need to pick myself up and reevaluate and re-strategize, and you know what I mean? And autoimmune disease is horrible, but it doesn't have to define you, you just have to figure out your new normal, and it takes time. That's all I can tell you is I'm not that many years into my diagnosis, and I have good days and bad days. You could ask my husband. There's days where I'm like in a good mood about it, and I'm like, you know what? I'm not going to let this hold me down. There's days where I'm like, I don't feel good and I'm crabby, and it feels like I just, I can't take it. So it's an up and down thing. It's normal. And it takes time to find your new normal and limitations and who you are now that you have this. It's not an easy feat. I fully believe they will find the answer to this disease. God's plan, Nicole. Having faith is a good thing. Oh yeah, I pray about it every day. Actually, what's crazy is for me having lupus and fibromyalgia, a lot of doctors, and I do everything natural. I don't take any of the meds. People tell me all the time, even people from just like people I've met that have lupus and fibro, or just lupus, like they say you do so much more than majority of people. And a lot of people are on disability. I just don't want to be on disability. So I'm trying to find a way to work where I can handle the workload, but I'm not, but I don't want to, I'm a busybody, guys. I could never just stay at home. Ouch, that is a lot to handle all at one time. Sorry for your loss. Thank you, DJ. Yeah, it was. My dad was like the icing on the cake out of everything. The house fire was a lot, but like my dad, I would say my dad and the house fire were like, and the house fire was 4 days before Christmas. 4 days before Christmas. Can you imagine? And all the hotels in the area were booked up. And so we stayed in our house that was like full of soot and smoke damage and everything else with the dogs. It was crazy. It was crazy. Crazy time. I am brand new and I support you. You are beautiful, aware, intelligent, encouraging person. I feel your autoimmune diseases. You are very strong. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Tragedy comes in threes, but fives. In your case, sheesh, I'm sorry. You're still, yeah. It was, my husband and I were like, what is going on? But then him and I are like, we'll be fine. We'll get through it. It sucks. We just keep going. Got to keep trucking. I feel for your sudden loss of loved ones. I can relate. You're doing great. You have such a positive outlook, which is encouraging. Thank you. I try to be, because you guys, if you don't laugh, you'll cry. So it's like one or the other. And yeah, crying is necessary sometimes, but you still got to like pick yourself back up and keep going. Believe me, I have my downs, but I'm trying to just continue to push. And a lot of the times too, I will say this, when you feel like you're struggling to like stay in a pattern that you want to be in, or goals you have, and you feel like, why is something distracting me or something keeps pulling me off? That's the devil at work, I always say. So like, if I have these feelings of like, oh, well, maybe I shouldn't podcast because, I don't really think I'm going anywhere. Maybe this is like, not going to ever be anything or whatever. If I'm like down on myself, for an example, I just am like, you know what? Like, that's the devil putting, words into my mind and trying to stop me from doing what I'm meant to do. So I just dust myself off and find something interesting to talk to you guys about and get back up there and do what I need to do. Because otherwise he wins. So, all right, let's see. Oh, I love bullet pointing and color pattern recognition. Yeah, I didn't want to do bullet pointing. And then I was like, I need to do this. No matter what, keep going. You are jumping into the streams first at the perfect time. Follow your purpose in life. Yeah, I'm trying. Find new normal is challenging, but we have no choice but to live and thrive in new normal. Yeah. And there's like a lot of ways where, like now I look and I'm like, I'm so glad. Like I don't work in the medical field anymore. There's so many aspects that I wasn't aligning with, at that, you know what I mean? Just where things were at. And my boss was horrible, you guys. He was horrible. He was horrible. And he stressed me out, and he just, honestly, that job stressed me out. It's probably why I'm even in the position I'm in, along with other things. But I'm so thankful that God brought me here, and I'm thankful. I mean, it's not easy. It's a very slow, not everyone's journey to, being a top channel is fast. So, and comparing yourself can happen. That's human when you start to compare yourself, but it does take away from your happiness and the joy of where you're at, So 5 minutes ago, NBC did put up a former Liberty High School student called to the stand. They said that they're not going to be identifying minors who testify in court per court order. The prosecution called a former Liberty High School student to the stand. She explained that she is in the class of 2026 and just graduated. Her mother is a former prison guard. She testified that on the day of the incident, she was at the track meet with the Liberty High School team. Liberty had 2 tents, one for girls and one for boys. The tents were located next to the Memorial team's tent, approximately 5 to 6 feet away. So that was the only thing that was released on the Liberty High School portion right now. So I don't know if they just wanted to put that out there before they put what her story was with it. But hold on, let me check CBS, and then we'll get back into listening to them. They kind of sound like they're repeating a little bit about the like don't be on my turf thing, but let's see. Okay, so we just had another update regarding the student that they were talking about that they're not going to identify minors. Literally, they just finished it out. So remember, this is the Liberty tent that was about 5 to 6 feet away. The witness testified that attention was drawn to the memorial tent. She heard a commotion, looked over, and saw a verbal argument. She said she witnessed Austin telling Karmelo to get up and move, and Karmelo refusing. She then looked away because her friend's race was about to start. And by the time she looked back, the stabbing had already taken place. She testified that Karmelo was the aggressor and that she believed a fight would happen. She said she did not think Austin wanted to fight and that Karmelo was trying to antagonize Austin. When asked about what she saw, the witness began to cry. She could be seen wiping tears from her cheek. The witness told the jury that the interaction had nothing to do with race and that she thinks it had nothing to do with self-defense either. She said she passed information to the police about the relationship between Austin and Karmelo, which she now knows is incorrect. It is unclear what specific information she told police about their prior relationship. During cross-examination, the witness told the jury that she remembered Karmelo saying that if they wanted him to move, they would have to move him. I can actually put this up on screen so you guys can see what I am reading from the news station because I think it's important too that you guys see this. So to me, this is not looking so good for Karmelo because now you have all these kids, and this is where it's saying during cross-examination, the witness told the jury that she remembered Karmelo saying that if they wanted him to move, they would have to move him. And outside the courthouse is absolutely crazy. They were showing like videos and images of it reminds me very much of the Karen Reed trial where I think by the time verdict is going to come back, I think that there is going to be a lot going on outside that courthouse. Hopefully nothing bad happens during that time over people being upset. This is the justice system playing out in front of people. And it's up to the jury to decide this based on what's being testified to in court. This is just brief updates of what's going on in the courthouse, but that doesn't make it that we know everything because we don't get to hear the entire testimony ourselves. I can understand the judge not wanting to, have the cameras in the courtroom, but I just think this would have been really good for them to allow cameras in the courtroom just for people to see. So again, we have another. So basically, I feel like majority of witnesses, if not all so far today, the consensus is that, Austin was not aggressive. He was not the aggressor. So we'll see. I mean, like I said, I think the amount of witnesses is going to be pretty substantial because of the fact that it was a track meet and there were 10 different schools and so on and so forth. So at least you guys got to see this article. Again, this is CBS is doing some live updates as it goes. Again, there's the two boys. And then I just been reading you guys as they come out, and they're not very big updates, as you can see. Like some of them are just very short, and I think it's just the to the point, basically the key points. Again, I really wish we were allowed to have cameras in the courtroom. I just think it would have been helpful because people that do believe this is self-defense, by just reading articles and all these different things, I think that people don't know what to assume because they feel like the media is choosing what you should pick and know, basically. And so I just think the transparency was important, and especially in a controversial case, or a case where people are really riled up over it. CCTV didn't catch anything. Yeah, they only, well, yesterday, that video that they showed, they did have somebody, they had a, what do you call it, a forensic analyst or whatever I think they called it, that did try to make that imaging clearer. I'm guessing, I don't know where that video was from. I can't remember if they said it was from a cell phone or was it from, but they said it was surveillance footage. So I would imagine that would come from a camera in a building or something, right? Or somewhere, maybe that would be the schools. And you think that it wouldn't be so pixelated. To me, that's why I kind of think of like, was it from a cell phone? But I don't know. And they had 5 different angles, but all of them were, I don't think they were like crystal clear is how it came across. So we'll remove this. We'll go back to Court TV and see if there's anything else that they posted or that they went over. We'll see what this is leading to. So I'm guessing, is this still live? I'm trying to see. Well, we'll see what else has come about. But I have a feeling. Let's see what this is about. So that's 2 people arguing outside the courthouse right here. Sorry, I didn't have that pulled up. 2 people arguing outside the courthouse. So like this is already taken a turn. I can't even understand what they're saying. But I'm guessing Court TV, that's it for today. We'll go back and look at YouTube right here and see if we can figure it out. But I don't think there's going to be any more like video live coverage of the case. I don't think. Let me see. This 1 hour ago.
Well, welcome back to Court TV Live. I'm Julia
trying to revive him to which
A2 today. We understand that the court is breaking for their lunch. That happened a short time ago.
Here starts to kind of fade a little, because that's at the moment when he's confronted with regards to a terrible thing. And I mean, I feel terrible.
No, I think we have already listened to that. So I don't know if there's just no more live coverage at that point or what happened. Let's see if CBS updated anything. And then if not, we will wrap up today because I don't think that there's going to be that much more. We'll just check CBS really quick just to see if there was anything that was added. But it's 5:20 here, so I'm pretty sure in Texas it's what 4:17 or something like that. So I'm sure the court is going to be done for the day here soon, would be my guess. But I'm just going to look and make sure that we don't have anything else right now. That it doesn't look like it is there. And then let's check CBS just to see. But that might be it for the day. I know that, okay, 0 minutes ago. Let's see what this is about. Okay, so this is CBS's version of what we read from NBC. Frisco Liberty graduate said she heard, if you want me to move, you'll have to move me before the unaliving. A recent Frisco Liberty High School graduate who competed in track and in discus said her team's tent was about 5.5 feet from Memorial High School's tent. It had been raining often on that day. She said she heard commotion coming from the memorial tent, describing it as more so people wanting a certain person to leave, that person refusing to go. She heard Karmelo Anthony say, if you want me to move, you'll have to move me. She said Austin Metcalf didn't seem to want to fight after the stabbing. She said, I just heard his brother trying to find help for him. She said she feels some of the news coverage has been unfair and that it has taken a racial angle. She said she doesn't think the case has anything to do with race and does not think it was self-defense. So that was that. I don't know what this is. I'm trying to find out if we're missing anything before I sign off of here because we've been on here for a while. My guess is, as I said, wait, anyone in the chat, if you're in Texas, what time is it by you? Is it 4:20? I'm guessing the courthouse, it's a Friday. I'm surprised that this is still even going. I didn't realize schools were there, pretty chaotic to me. All the evidence points to a heated exchange gone wrong. I wouldn't say it was racial. I don't think it was either. Keep up the great work. Big shout out to you. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. I'll read through the super chats before I get off. I just want to make sure we're not missing anything. Could be a tactic, make as emotional as possible to get the boy off a murder charge. Yeah, you never know. I mean, it's going to take several days. I think they were saying they're guessing a couple weeks for trial. I don't know how long I think it's going to be. I really thought after like the second trial for Karen Reed, I thought that they would have a verdict faster than what they did. So you just never know. You don't know what way that's going to go. This is ABC. Let's see.
We hired a big media.
This is ABC 13 Houston. Let's see what they are saying. Let's just pull this up really quick and see what they have to say about this. It's very short, but I don't know. Let's look at this one really quick. I'm just curious.
About the moment he said a teen on trial for which told jurors about the moment he said a teen on trial for murder admitted to stabbing another teen during a track meet last year. Testimony began yesterday in the murder trial of 18-year-old Karmelo Anthony. He's accused of stabbing and killing 17-year-old Austin Metcalf last year after witnesses say the two argued over Anthony sitting under a tent belonging to Metcalf's team. Anthony's attorneys argued the stabbing was an act of self-defense. Prosecutors say it was an unprovoked murder. On the stand yesterday, Heritage High School coach Vincent Hooper testified that after the stabbing, an athletic trainer asked him to stay with Anthony. Hooper said he put his arm around Anthony and asked him what happened. He told the jury, Anthony said, quote, he put his hands on me, I stabbed him, end quote. Hooper recalled telling Anthony that if Metcalf died, it would change the rest of his life. He says Anthony later began crying when Hooper stressed the seriousness of the situation. Jurors also saw surveillance video from that day. A video expert testified the video shows someone push or shove someone, and then the other person pushes or shoves back. The expert admitted it did not appear to show the actual stabbing. Testimony continues today.
Okay, so there was that. but I was trying to see if there's anything else that's been put out, but it seems like no one is live with anything right now. I'm surprised Court TV ended up stopping with their live coverage and their interviews. But I'm trying to also figure out what time court is going to be out today because it's 4:21 in Texas. So I don't know if they're going to go till 5 or if they are if they are going to be done like at 4:30 and they've already stopped maybe because I don't see any updates in the last 30 minutes. So I have to figure out what time is. Let's see if I can figure out what they said. Yeah, I'm not even seeing a time. My guess is they would get pretty close to close of business. That's what they did with the Karen Reed case. So I don't know if that's going to be. I'm checking one more time just to see if we have any other updates before we hop off here. But I think that that's going to be it for today, you guys. I have a feeling that they probably already stopped with testimony because it's getting so close to 5 o'clock. It's a Friday. My guess is that is what's going to happen. I will see what the schedule looks like for next week and Monday. If this is going to be going on Monday, we will do a live on Monday. And what I'll do is Monday, instead of just covering this, we'll cover another topic as well on top of this in between the coverage on it. I'll have to figure out, like, maybe we'll do the Henry Nowak case or we'll look into something else to talk about in between. Maybe we'll do some Charlie Kirk stuff. We'll see. I need to look into the Karen Reed case. I only found out about it last week. I am going to be doing a lot of Karen Reed coverage, and I'm actually working to film the first trial, then the second trial, and then the civil case, because for people who didn't watch, so that they could get caught up and familiar with the case, because the Karen Reed case was, it was one of my favorite cases to follow. There's a lot involved, and then that leads you into the Sandra Birchmore case. So I plan to go into that as well. There's a lot of overlapping bad cops in that in that realm between Stoughton and Canton. So it's a whole thing. But anyways, make sure to like the video before you guys head out. I appreciate everybody who's stuck with me for 3 hours on this case. We will see what ends up happening next week, and I don't know. I don't know where this is going to end up. All the way around, a sad situation. Like I said, you have two 17-year-old kids involved here. It's just not great at all. I'll read the super chats. Again, Peaky Blinders gifted 5 memberships. Thank you so much for doing that, Peaky Blinders, for everyone who got memberships. Be sure to say thank you. And thank you again for also the $10 super chat. You're a gift in the present. Thank you so much. I appreciate you. SPR Smoke, thank you so much for the $5 super chat. I appreciate you guys. Truly, the support is amazing. Again, I will be posting videos all weekend on different things. I'm trying to think of what I recorded. Pre-recorded for you guys. I'm also going to be doing a breakdown of the Brian Harpool for my Charlie Kirk fans interview with Sean Ryan, because there was things that he said in that interview that when I think back on it, I'm like, there's a couple weird things that I'm weirded out by that I don't know that everyone picked up on. So I wanted to go over that. So I'm going to be doing a video of about that. But members, if you are members only, if you're part of the white, blue, or gold tiers, You get to see shorts and obviously other exclusive content. I will be dropping more content. I have stuff filmed. I dropped a video today, but I will be dropping more this evening and over the weekend for you guys. So you guys will have several things to watch. What else? And then, yeah, I'll be going over the Women's Summit from the Charlie Kirk case because Erica is posting about that. What else? I think that's about it. But I have several things that I've already recorded. I'll be still doing Mackenzie Shirilla stuff that we're going to go over her dad. I am working on a video about her sister because I know a lot of people are requesting that. So I've been getting that information together from the Crash documentary. If you haven't watched it, it's a pretty good watch. The case in itself is crazy. That family's crazy. So if you're looking for something over the weekend to like binge, that would be a good one. I'm going to be doing an overview as well of the Menendez brothers case and doing a deep dive into that. That was a really, really good documentary, a really good case to go over. So we'll be doing that. And I think that's about it. Like I'm trying to make sure that I keep you guys up to date on what's going on. But I'll continue to put out Charlie Kirk stuff. I'm just trying to go through a few other things that are coming out or being talked about. And then I can put stuff together for you guys on that. So again, I'll be posting all weekend. I pre-record a lot so that I always have something for you guys. At least one video a day if I can try to help. I want to be able to get something out. What else? Yeah. So just be able or just have your alerts on. I'll always let you guys know when I'm going live. Like I said, we're going to start to have an everyday schedule starting at the same time. Today was a little bit later than the time I wanted to start the live. So I think as far as permanent schedule, I will be doing an earlier time frame, like maybe like an 11 a.m. Eastern time start or maybe 10:30 in the morning. I don't know. I'm trying to pick one just because there's so many people live in the evenings and stuff. I think it would be better to go a little bit earlier in the morning. She's a psycho and her dad is the source of her entitlement. Yeah, she has a lot of issues and both of her parents are responsible for how that all turned out. And her mom is an enabler and a half. So, yeah. So I will be letting you guys know in the community post area. So be sure to check that. If you guys are interested in any merch, that's all going to be the link in the bio on my YouTube channel. And I think that's about it. I think that's it. I got to get more structured here with my spiel once I get back into doing lives. It's been a while. So anyways, I hope you guys all have a great weekend. I hope you guys are safe. Enjoy time with your family. Get some rest. And I will see you guys all next week. So like I said, plan probably next week. I'm guessing like maybe Monday we'll try for something in the morning, maybe 11 a.m. Eastern, somewhere in there, and go over court and then another case as well. Or we'll do a live where we talk about several things. It won't just be this one thing probably. But I'll keep you guys posted in that community page area. So, all right. Be safe. Be well, guys. I'll talk to you later.